There he is. Check.
Hey, sorry, man. I was.
Don't worry, I got you. All's well. Check one. Check. Checkity two.
What's up, chat room?
I have a very deep voice today because I'm fighting something.
Yeah.
A lot of that going around.
Yes, I was that way a couple weeks ago.
I'm going to jump straight in here and just make everything work. Ooh, I've got very big hair today. I do. It's all right, though. I'm
Nice.
all right with it. Yeah, it's been very Braveheart lately. I think it's living in the country. And that voice you guys hear in the background is our dear friend, the lovely and talented Bob Cesca, who's right there. There he is. Welcome back, my friend. I have to say, when I was trying to figure out how to jumpstart my show again, and this is in total deference and belovedness to all of my other guests, that in going through all the messages I was getting from people and all that kind of stuff, and I ran across one of your older ones where you're like, I'll move heaven and earth to be on your show again, or whatever. And it was just like, it was weird that I, like, passing through, trying to reconnect and do stuff, that I saw that one again, and I was like, oh, Bob is a good guy, he's a nice fella, I'd love to have him back on the show. And I was I was like, I think he would be the perfect person to jump back into this for a couple of reasons, for a myriad, but also a couple. I think and I think they do mean different things. On the one hand, I'm sure we're seeing a lot of the same thing, and on the other hand, you can catch me up on some of my blind spots, because this is one of those rare situations where I've been so offline for the last month and change that I now know what it feels like to be a low information voter. I mean, obviously within reason, but you can see, like, these bits of, like, oh, I see where you just get this one little thread and you think that's a thing. And because I could see how the news would get into where I was and what I was doing, right? And somebody's phone, like, everybody would be talking about life, and we're just doing our thing because my dad and all that stuff. And then somebody would just see something in the news and go, what the hell? And they'd say what the headline was, and then we'd all go back to dealing with the shit we had going on, right? And I'm like, that's how it happens. That's how it happens. That's what life is like for, I would go 63.8% of the populace at any given time.
Yes.
Good or bad, up or down, they're getting a thread and going, what the fuck is that? And then they're going back to, like, whatever fresh hell they find themselves in on rotation. It is not always the same, 62.7%. It's a rotating group. You rotate in and out of it, because I'm rotating out temporarily, then I will rotate back in. Holidays will do that.
Yeah.
August is always counted on. That expands about 78.1.279%, right? Where everybody's just like, fuck it, I got to get the kids to school. Summer's almost over. One last trip to wherever, right? So you don't even pay attention. So it's the Friday after 6 o'clock of the calendar year, right? To drop a shit story. At least it used to be. So sometimes I will ask, like, what's your bone to pick story, when people come on, so I can get it, because there's so much. But in this particular case, fill me in as if I've just woken up from a coma.
Okay. Well, first of all, man, I am so sorry about your dad. I just wanted to say this here at the outset. I've been through the same thing in the last year with my dad. They were both, your dad and my dad, both the same age when we lost them. And I feel so terrible for you. And I hope your family finds the healing and good vibes that he would have wanted you to have. So,
Greg Proops laid me out flat with a quote that he sent, and I will have at some point the strength to be able to read it on the air. but it was like a piece of poetry about someone who passed, and I was just like, I had it together, Greg. I had it together.
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to get back, and then it just gutted me for like 2 days straight, where any mention of stuff just starts me welling up, And I still have a service this Friday to go to. We have this is what a legend my dad was. We have a thing on Friday we're doing for him at the like area where they live. They have this little clubhouse that everybody meets at and has, there's a chef there and all kinds of stuff, but they used to live, it's almost like a retirement community, but on steroids. Like they build their own houses and that kind of stuff, but it's in the hills of Kentucky, hidden away. And they're having a little get together of all the people that know him from there. Then we are, my grandfather was president of Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky, and there's a building named after him. And my grandparents and my aunt are buried there, and my dad is going to be in a plot next to his sister. And so, but he wants to be in the headstone. He's been cremated, and he wants the ashes in the headstone, instead of buried in the ground separately or something like that. So the headstone itself has to be made to these specs. So they put it in there and then they seal it, and then it goes, and then it transports down there like a monument and gets dunked into the ground. And I've got to help design that, which is going to be another. And then the last one is next summer, if you're free. I think the third week in June. In Friendship, Indiana, which is an old-timey shoot place where people go and dress in buckskins and all that kind of stuff and live in teepees. I've been going there since I was 2 years old, and we shoot long rifles and flintlocks and all that kind of stuff. Some of my dad's ashes are going to be mixed with black powder, and his friends are going to salute him into eternity, including myself.
Wow.
So I will be firing some of my father's ashes out of a Kentucky long rifle. This is why I don't talk about my life to people. They'll never get it.
But somehow I can completely relate to that. In fact, I'm thinking not only, because my family is just as weird, but also it's very Hunter S. Thompson of him and of his friends to want to do that.
Oh, so they do it to all the guys in my dad's, friend group. And then it started doing it, and then it became a tradition. So now it's a tradition in friendship that people do this. And so, I have given instructions, of course, and I'm sure you and I share this, that I will be cremated, all my ashes will be made into a diamond, a black diamond, with, for kiss reasons, but still with my,
of course,
my DNA laser etched inside it. And then a sample, of my cells, probably, have it wrapped in a piece of my skin or wrapped in hair. And then it will be encased in amber and launched into space, so that at some point in the distant future, an alien race can reconstitute me and I can catch them up.
That's so it'll be like Planet Hal.
Exactly. Yeah. Hello. Welcome to the planet. Here's your joke. Right. So that's.
Oh, I'm stealing
you think
that.
I'm kidding?
I'm going to do that.
I'm not kidding. No. I'm not kidding. That's what's going to happen. So, that said, and people, Stargal says, "Are you serious?" Yes, I'm hilariously serious. That's the operate. Yeah. I realize I operate in these two worlds at the same time. It's like being a parallel dimension character. I am always silly and always serious at the same time, and that's what confuses people. So, I will have a Masonic service. My dad was not a Mason, so he will not have that. But that will be another thing for another time. We'll talk about that. Okay. But all right. So what the fuck happened? So let me tell you my dumb part of what I caught. Trump piggy, MRI scan, crypto crash. Russians drafted our Ukraine deal. Hegseth is going to be tried for murder at some point in the future, whether it's under Trump or not. And what else? Trump thinks Trump lost at Turkey. That's it.
For being out of the loop, that's a pretty comprehensive list. I mean, I need to actually write that shit down in order to remember everything. You know what I mean? It's just that's where I am right now with my brain.
Right.
But yeah, I would say, I mean, as far as what I've been tracking, you know what? Let me go back, because what you're going through right now is kind of symbolic and representative of the idea that those of us who do this, we need to be steeped in it all the time
Oh my
in
God.
order to keep up with it. And as soon as we step out, as soon as we're out of the loop, as soon as we're not wired into what's going on, it's like, well, my God, what did he just do? What did he
Right.
say? What was that
Right.
thing? And then what was the thing before it? And then the day before it, and then the day before it. And so it's really challenging to get back into the entire groove of the existential madness that we face in this country. But you know, I guess top of mind right now is both healthcare and Donald's ongoing deception when it comes to his personal health.
Yeah.
So it's these dual tracks of, are people going to have to pay upward of 114% or more in health insurance premiums? People who used to were getting those expanded subsidies from the Affordable Care Act, and as of the first of the year will not get those subsidies. And the reopening of the government and how that affected healthcare, and how, you know, well, I mean, that's a whole separate story as far as the deal to reopen. But and then on top of that, Donald continuing to lie about his personal health, where now he's saying, yeah, okay, it's okay. We're going to release, the doctor should release the MRI.
No.
But
Wait,
it was
very important distinction. Because you know me, and I'm a bit nitpicky, as it were, especially when it comes to messaging and lawmaking. He said the results of the MRI. He did not say he would release the contents of the MRI, the details of the MRI. He said the results, which, by the way, he technically already did by going, greatest results they've ever seen. That's what he's going to release as the results of the fucking MRI. Right? Because that's what he said, results.
Which will be falsified.
Yeah, of course.
Those results will be falsified. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any doubt? That should be the default position. Oh, you mean Donald Trump's going to release something? Oh, that's going to be a bunch of bullshit.
Have you seen the look in his eyes lately? Okay.
Yeah.
Without getting too much into what we've both been through this year, then. My dad, when he decided to go off dialysis, his body filled with phosphorus and other toxins because his kidneys would not produce them anymore. And slowly but surely, it winded him down in an accelerating arc. It was, it dropped and dropped and dropped. Yeah. And I don't know what the process was with your dad, but and my grandfather had Alzheimer's. And I wasn't around him for a lot of it. I saw a couple of things because I was young. But there is this look when someone can't form their thoughts and they get, my dad was not getting dementia because of this. He was locked in. He could still articulate in his head. He couldn't, he couldn't verbalize it. And it was very frustrating for him because it was all there. He was just being poisoned, effectively. And so the poison was stopping him from being able to articulate what he was thinking. But there's these moments where you try to find your thought. And it's this like middle gaze, lost look that's both sad and terrifying for the people that love you. Trump has that look all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every picture now.
And I, like you, I know that look because my dad, the thing that started him downhill was a terrible, terrible stroke in 2023. And he got cognitive aphasia as a consequence of this stroke because they weren't able to get to it in time. There's a med you can take if you've had a stroke that within a 4-hour window, if you take it, it'll alleviate all of the symptoms of the stroke. But if you take it outside that window, it could actually worsen things. And because he lived alone, there was no one around to know when the stroke actually happened. So they couldn't give him that med. So as a consequence of that, this was a guy who would hold court. He would give speeches. He was always the guy to give a toast at someone's wedding or some special occasion. And suddenly he can't form thoughts, or the thoughts that he's forming aren't coming out of his mouth the way he thought they were. Right. And then the thoughts going in, the expressions to him were getting scrambled in his brain. And so that look, I know that look quite well. Yeah. And I certainly Donald's got it.
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to work right now. Nope. It's the wrong page. Okay. Sorry. I was trying to try and open up my, the window of this, but I'll show it on screen real quick. This is a picture of him from Axios. You can probably see it right here.
Right.
Right. And that, holy shit, hold on. I think I can actually, boink. There you go. You're in there. It's all framed off. What the hell? This is what happens with Murphy. Sorry. But you can see in this that like that look on his face.
Yeah.
Is so like it's permanent now. It is like he's always got this kind of like angry lost, and that's dementia coming on. That's it. And you know, Reagan had it. Reagan was just a different kind of a guy. So he was condescending, and he viewed himself as a grandfather late in life. So that's what cemented. And he'd be, well, that whole thing was him being, let me explain it to you, like both to the press as you're an idiot. Well, you idiots, like, but that's where he was going with it, and to everybody else, like he was talking to a grandkid. This is how he processed stuff. Trump is just gonna get, he's gonna blame God and man for his failures and the failures of his body and brain, and it's gonna get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. I wonder what's going on behind the scenes with him, because as a narcissist, as someone who is so wrapped up in his own vanity and how he appears to people to the point of having to go, I can't even imagine what he goes through when he's healthy, that entire morning routine to put his face on and to do the hair and all the things that he needs to wedge himself into as far as being presentable to the public.
Right.
But then you add on top of that the fact that at the very goddamn least, he has lost so many steps in the past year alone.
In the last 4 months, I would say the biggest arc we've seen is from when that Epstein memo was released, because he thought this was going to do it. He was going to shame his followers, will do anything he said. He was drinking his own fucking Kool-Aid, which we do too often. We drink his Kool-Aid way too often, thinking he has this impervious control over MAGA, and that he's somehow, they'll always go with him and blah, 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 because of, past being prologue. But everybody's got a line. And for a lot of these assholes, Epstein was it. And when that memo came out, and in the following week, it didn't go away and it started to accelerate, that's when he started getting really shaky. You can look at... like just video of him afterwards, just like he's losing sleep over this.
Well, you remember our friend Brian Karam talked about this one occasion during first term where Karam got some procedure. I forget exactly what it was, but then he got someone from the West Wing came over to the press room and said, hey, Brian, the president would like to talk to you. And the president was going to get the same procedure and was terrified. He was terrified to have this procedure. So I think this is all a combination of not only wanting to cover up his actual condition, which he's been doing for at least 10 years now, but on top of that, just being utterly terrified of having to do these things, like 2 MRIs within the same year. These repeated cognitive tests. Someone is either he continues to lie about the reason for these things, or they're just tiptoeing around the old man to tell him what he wants to hear. Mr. President, this was a perfect MRI. This was a perfect cognitive test, even though you couldn't properly name the animals or remember them the next day. He aced it. And he's confusing that with an IQ test, which they probably also told him. So I'm at this stage now where I don't know what's a lie and what is a deception, because he's surrounded by people who are just manipulating him.
Well, that's the yes man world. That's either you're lying to the public or your people are lying to you. The yes men are lying to you, or you're lying, and that's like Josh Brolin came out this week or whatever in an interview and was saying like Donald Trump's the greatest salesman he's ever met, and he talked about this. He can sell people, blah blah blah, and like he defended him, quote, as his friend Donald Trump, and said he's the greatest salesman. Okay, let me tell you something about being the greatest salesman. You don't have to be the greatest salesman if you have a good product. Yeah. You understand? Like if what you're selling is worth a damn or is as awesome as you say, it doesn't require a lot. As a matter of fact, the greatest salesmen sell the biggest piles of dog shit.
Yeah.
Why would you have to? Yeah. So
Mary Trump just did an interview with Al Jazeera, I think it was, and she was saying something along the lines of, he's so concerned with making himself seem like he's the greatest at everything.
Yeah.
He's forgetting how to do a good job. He's putting the greatest ever ahead of just doing good, which is this weird, twisted pathology.
That presumes facts not in evidence, Your Honor. That would be that he has any idea how to actually do good, that these plans actually work, or that and part of the reason he's in this boat is because his magic solutions were based on magical thinking. I mean, this is old-fashioned Republican. We'll grow our way out of it on steroids. That's what this is. Everything's a reboot with this fucker, with a cheaper cast and a bunch of dumber people playing your favorite characters. We've got like the Timu Kissinger and Timu Rumsfeld and Trump, of course, being the Timu Antichrist, and Dan Quayle with a beard, and that can be read two ways. Also, by the way, I have audio of Karam's test that he had.
Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time?
I don't know if he was nice enough.
I don't know that was the test, but okay, let's just say it was.
Because you using the whole fist, Doc?
Right. So it was actually, I think they were injecting dye into him to look at his heart or something along those lines. It was cardiac related.
It was a nuclear stress test, wasn't it?
Isn't
that a thing? A nuclear stress test?
Trump thinks that requires them to, insert the nuclear football in his
river.
You know what I mean? Like, he has no idea. No idea.
Right.
So there was a piece of good news in that the potential of a President Hegseth was flushed down the toilet heartily this week.
Yeah.
With moving him from the potential strong man just trying to get fit troops and war fighter, blah, 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 to a murderer who committed a war crime using the powers of the United States, who will be added to the pile of John Hughes and Dick Cheneys of the world, and not, future, America first, MAGA heroes.
Yeah. This is all about an administration that is geared toward pure, unadulterated, and this is going to be, I don't know, it's a weird way to put it, but they're really into the whole populist thing where they know that if they're fighting crime, however that appears, that people will invariably go, well, that's fine. I don't want drug dealers. So if they're killing drug dealers, that's okay. That's the misapprehension they're operating under, not realizing that there's a mandate for leadership in this country, political leadership in this country, that you're supposed to abide the rule of law so that we're not acting on pure impulse and instinct and rage. You want that cooling saucer in leadership, because it was sort of like a great example is from the show The West Wing, where President Bartlett stepped aside using the 25th Amendment after his daughter was kidnapped, because he realized that he will use whatever means within his power to punish the people who kidnapped her. And so he relinquished the presidency to someone who had a little bit more objective distance to pursue that cause, but using the rule of law, using a certain established framework in order to do that. So he's not abusing his power. And Donald and certainly Pete Hegseth have no concept whatsoever of how that operates, because they're basing not just their administration on populism, but also on this fictitious infotainment version of politics that they get through Fox News Channel and the MAGA entertainment complex. This whole idea of, oh no, this isn't how politics are supposed to work. It's over here. It's this fantasy land made for TV, made for rage baiting version of politics. And that's the real way you operate as president, and in the case of Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. And so that's been the ongoing misapprehension with this administration. And maybe they realize this, and they're just taking advantage of the fact that, if they're saying that they're murdering drug dealers on the open seas, that most people will go, well, fine, because not in my backyard.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or like they'll they'll memory hole the details of it, and 2 years
Yeah.
from now, or 5 years from now, or 7 years from now, whenever the people who are behind all this stuff start running for office themselves, like Hegseth or whatever,
Yeah.
they're hoping that all you remember was that he was tougher than anybody else in ever, and you'll forget the details that you have no way, you couldn't identify them as actual drug dealers. You didn't know who they were. You didn't have their names. You didn't have where they took off from, where they were headed. You didn't have the contents because you let the boat sink, so you don't even know if there was evidence on board. All that kind of stuff. They're hoping that will go away. Unfortunately, that's I think a habit from the 80s when there was no internet. That's another thing. But I would like to say for the record, and call me crazy for asserting this, but I happen to believe it's true, that you cannot fight crime by committing crime. Just say it. You cannot fight crime by committing crime. It's a little thing. It's a bugaboo of my own that I have that is kind of a sticking point. Add that to the number of Sparksisms. You can't fight crime by committing crime.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't. It's not how it works. But yes, the fruits of crime.
But they'll continue to assume throughout this investigation, and now we know that the Republicans in Congress are going to open up hearings to investigate Pete Hegseth and these follow-on attacks against these alleged Venezuelan drug dealers, which we have no idea.
No.
But throughout that entire process, I assure you that Donald will continue to poll very well when it comes to fighting drugs, fighting the war on drugs, etc. Because it plays to the lizard brain of a lot of Americans. As long as, whether it's pushing back against alleged drug dealers or just simply pushing back against brown people.
Yes.
No one was impeached for murdering brown people overseas. That's and Donald understands that. At the very least, he's got some remaining gray matter that is absorbing the fact that it's not going to end his presidency as it really should. But you know what? It is going to end Pete Hegseth's his stint in the Trump administration. Pete Hegseth is going to be probably out by the end of the year. If not before that.
Right. Yeah. So, and he'll put somebody genuinely macho in the role, like he did when he changed Joint Chief Staffs or even his particular chief of staff. He'll pick increasingly military guys. Raisin Kane will probably be moved up into that. I'm not kidding. Like, that's who he's probably. I mean, and people around them are probably going, it wouldn't be so bad. You love Dan Raisin Kane, and Pete's going to go back to the private sector where he's going to make a bunch of money with working with Palantir. They'll give him a job, so it'll be a easy transition for him, and you won't have to look wrong. The problem with Trump is, and I think this is where we have the runway starting to taper out into the horizon in front of him, where he's starting to run out, is that he's always had a problem. He never fired anybody on the fucking Apprentice. The producers chose who came and went. We know this, so he was never really good at it. He doesn't even know the value of what people do or what their actual fucking jobs are. So how would he be making any, decisions that have any value himself about who should be in those roles? But when it comes to someone like Hegseth right now, or Patel, who's also got no fans in maggots, and we'll talk about Epstein next, because that, again, that's the anchor, that's the anvil that he's dragging around on it like a chain around his neck, like Jacob Marley, the ghost of I don't know, island flights past, but like they, he's always hated getting rid of people, but he's, if in the first term, if there was a little bit of runway out there, other people could talk him into this. With his brain fade and his awareness of his own mortality and his sort of like, if you give any ground, Roy Cohn, never admit defeat, always deny everything, all that kind of stuff. It's becoming increasingly hard for him to fire anybody because it's an admission of weakness or being wrong, and he can't do it because everything, if you can't speak honestly about an MRI you had, and you have to hide those details, obviously you're not going to be able to be forthcoming and go, well, he wasn't doing the job I set him out on doing, and it's important, and blah, blah, blah. You have to have leadership skills to do that. And he's just hiding behind everybody. All these people are like, they're like shark's teeth. The idea is that they break off when the attack is too hard, and then another one moves in to fill their place, and just always producing shark's teeth. And he's the shark. And he's got to believe, like, at some point, if they can't fill it in, he's running out of teeth, as I guess my to bury that analogy. And so how does Pete Hegseth get, actually bounced in that circumstance? Same thing with Patel. You got to start admitting, like, oh shit, they were burying Epstein stuff. Oh shit, they were, he did something wrong.
Well, he's probably going to resign. I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where Donald's going to say, I fired him, because Donald doesn't want to admit that he's wrong.
Right.
And, along those lines, what we're looking at here is second term Donald, who's full of hubris, who's full of delusion, who's full of narcissism, thinking, okay, this is all about me. I can do whatever I want now because I don't have to run for re-election in 28. And by the way, I have successfully circumvented the rule of law. I've been able to escape legal accountability. So I can kind of do whatever I want. And the thing that he's forgetting in that mindset is all of his allies on the Hill have to get reelected next year. And so, but he doesn't care about that because it's win-win for him. Because if there's a bloodbath for Republicans in the midterms, what's going to happen is he's got an enemy that he can target, specifically the congressional Democrats, because they'll have newly attained power, and he'll be able to create more conflicts and headbutting and be able to scream on Truth Central about them. It's just a bigger target for him. But if the Republicans end up coming out on top, which they won't, but if they do, that's also good for him. So he's not even considering the long-term ramifications for the people surrounding him. All he gives a rip about is his own fortunes, and he feels invincible to a certain extent. Health aside, politically,
thanks, John
speaking,
Roberts.
he feels like he can get away with anything now.
Right. And
so there's that too.
Yeah, I guess the Supreme Court is his fallback, that he can do whatever the hell he wants, and everything he does. Maybe the perception is, and this is what the people around him, including Melania and, on behalf of her back channel with Russia, talk him into doing by going, you have the most powerful man in the world. You can make any decision you want, and everyone has to do it. Even if it's something that makes you look bad, you will look great because you are, extraordinary. Just exercise your power just so you can, right? That would be the theory where he can be yammered into getting rid of people that are a liability by the people around him.
Right.
So I will rebuild my my screen so that I can show stuff on there. But there's an article. There's a couple of things I want to talk about, and one of them is this sort of parallel track analogy, because I have been talking for a while about the single track analogy, which I made since the election, which is Trump promised his voters everything, and reality is on the same track going the opposite direction. And at some point, the Epstein files are going to run into his desire and need not to show what's in them. And that crash, I would argue, is a slow moving one. It just kind of started it's like a time lapse bullet time since the memo came out. That's exactly what's been happening in Maggotdom. They don't trust him so much. They don't trust Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Bongholio so much right now that they don't buy the Charlie Kirk murder. Like, that's how lost these fuckers are. They were the reality of it seems to be tailor-made for them to, be derogatory towards trans people and the left and whatever, because that's just who this person was and who they were in on. And it's funny how they're like, I don't believe this campus shooting was real at all. And you're like, really? You don't seem to give a shit about all the other campus shootings at all. So maybe it's good that you're paying attention to this one. But they don't trust them so much about the Epstein stuff that they won't buy their Charlie Kirk story, which says to me, are they buying the immigration roundup story? Because the numbers are way low. Are they buying the poll last week that I pointed out that they don't trust him on the economy? Somewhat like 61% of Republican voters blame him for the state of the economy, which you should, because even right? Even most presidencies, you got a window of time before your policies kick in, but they ran in there so fast and started, move fast, break things, Doge and tariffing all over the place, that he clearly owns it, because it's, it wasn't some subtle change in monetary policy. This was a, boom crash. And U.S. factory activity, according to Bloomberg Economics, has shrunk by the most in 4 months. It shrank in November by the most in 4 months as orders weaken, indicating manufacturers are struggling to break free from an extended period of malaise. The Institute for Supply Management Manufacturing Index eased 0.5 to 48.2, which is below 50, which indicates a contraction of the economy. This is an example of gravity. This is an example of, I don't give a fuck what you think the monetary reality is or how you're going to, whatever your solution is. Right now, this is what's actually happening. And most of it is directly related to Trump's tariff stuff. They know he's the cause. And so what his solution is making the problem worse. And we know this. That's how he's always operated. Look at COVID, for fuck's sake.
Oh, God, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But
maggots, and even before that, Hal.
Yeah.
Even before that, the great irony of the 2024 election is a whole bunch of voters went into their polling place with this Faustian bargain with themselves. I'm going to turn a blind eye to the fascism, the racism, the corruption, the criminality, the insurrection, the COVID death toll. I'm going to ignore all that stuff because the businessman president is going to return us to the 2019 pre-COVID economy, and things will be great again. Prices will go back down to where they were in 2019, and things will be wonderful because businessman president once again.
Right.
And the irony of that, Hal, is the fact that in 2019, there was a manufacturing recession.
Right.
There were 2 consecutive terms of negative growth in the manufacturing sector prior to COVID ever being on the radar at all. And the great irony of that is, again, that was a part and parcel of his initial tariff regime. It was part and parcel of this ongoing ridiculous trade war of choice with China and so forth. And then the same thing. These people went in with that Faustian bargain last year, and the same thing has happened.
Right.
Here we are with a stagnant manufacturing sector as a consequence of Donald Trump's ridiculous economic agenda, which is basically just one thing. Not basically, it is just one thing.
Tariffs, the most beautiful word. It's the most beautiful word, maybe right next to taco. Also, by the way, I'd like to point out that we entered a fucking recession in February of 2020. February of 2020. And COVID saved his ass. All of his monetary policies were building towards an economic downturn that would effectively wipe out his chance at re-election. And COVID masked it by being worse.
Yes.
That's the reality. COVID was so awful that you missed the fact that he had, skull fucked the economy into a cocked hat, and it was just like falling apart. And he was, including the manufacturing downturn, including jobs going down, including, like the financial sector not wanting to lend again because they were worried about monetary policy, all this stuff just because of him. And then COVID comes in, and it's like, it's like somebody like choking on a glass of water, like when it goes down the wrong pipe or whatever, and then they fall out of a raft. Like, it's, you know what I mean?
Or you're standing on a street corner and it's pouring down rain and your clothes are getting wet and you're like, God damn it, this sucks. I have to go to a meeting. And suddenly a semi-tractor trailer rolls on by and splashes you with a tidal wave.
That's right, yeah. Or the day after tomorrow happens, right? And just there's a big tsunami that just swamps the whole thing. Right.
You're right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
so that's absolutely how that works.
And I would tie this, taco is one thing. And so we know that the entire Wall Street is treating Donald Trump like the traders in the people who were involved in real estate in New York did for years. Like, don't include him. And if he does anything, whatever he's for, be against it and you'll be fine. Like, this just, he's that predictably fucked up. The only difference now is that he's got actual power because he can move billions, if not trillions of dollars with a tweet, or a message, a truth sinkhole post. But other than that, it'll come back anyways because he'll walk it back because he's fucking stupid. So these taco trades happen, sit it out. This is dumb. Don't if there's a dip, buy a little more because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. The other thing happens. There's a huge crypto drop this week, and it was it lost. I want to say 25% of its value. Went from its all-time high of 123,000 to 83,000 today, and all basically since Don Jr. got into the market, pump and dump. That's what happened. Oh, everybody, it was all the FOMO and fear of missing out and all this greater fool theory where people are even though I know this is worthless. Maybe there's an asshole who doesn't. And
green mailing. It's green mailing. What he used to do, Donald and Fred used to do this in Manhattan back in the day, where they would do these pump and dump things with stocks and shares, and they would manipulate the media. And remember, it was not only Donald Trump, but his dad was his wingman. That's how it was described in the New York Times. Fred was Donald's wingman and manipulating the stock market. Unbelievable. And here they are again with crypto.
Well, I mean, it worked with his him buying chips for his Atlantic City hotel and casino, and then with the idea of never cashing them in. It was effectively an under the table investment in the property just to stabilize it so that his family would continue to make money over the top of it. Illegitimately, by the way, faking its wins, faking its success, underpinning it. So there's.
And by the way, my favorite thing, my favorite story, just to interject here while we're talking about stupid Donald investments.
Yes.
TMTG, Trump Media, which owns Truth Central, is down 75 goddamn %. There's your businessman president. Right. Donald Trump can't make a social media platform work. He can't make social media profitable in the age of social media, Hal.
Yeah.
That's how stupid and incompetent he is as the businessman president. Sorry for the dick quote.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so one of the big reasons is that Trump is not an idea man, no matter what people think is. He is simply a barnacle. He chases whales. He always has. If the trend is moving in this direction, just grab and hold on for dear life. And then the trick is get out before it hits the propeller of a cruise ship, to use my whale analogy, right? So the greatest example is Truth Sinkhole, which, by the way, is built on the Mastodon architecture, which is why it would be truth.social, because you'd start a social media network on Mastodon. That's what you call it. And they just borrowed the structure, pretended they made it. It's just fucking stupid. Anyways, so Truth Sinkhole is based on that Mastodon structure. If they'd used Ning or built their own, it would cost them money. But this is just a way to do it for free. But at the time they did it, there were already 5 fucking right-wing online platforms dedicated almost entirely to maggots. Gab, Parler, Rumble, basically and then Twitter came in and sideswiped, but there's one other. What was the other one? Gab, Parler, whatever. I'll remember it in a minute. But there were already a bunch of them. It was an overserved, very small market with no fucking money. But the idea was, I'll come in there and I'll wipe out the competition. Well, the competition is your own fucking friends, you dumb motherfucker. And so, fucking Bongholio owns a chunk of Rumble. He owned Parler. Parler was the biggest, intel dump of a social media site, I think, in history, short of the one big one from, that was minuscule on Meta on Facebook compared to how many users, but was giant compared to everything else because of the volume. But Parler was 7 petabytes or terabytes of user data, locations, their photos, their personal information, photos of their fucking driver's licenses, all of it, because Bongholio was using the demo version of security software on fucking It was like $17 a month to use the real version, and they just used the demo, and it was you could hack right past it. Just fucking whatever. Anyway, so he jumps in. He's like, "I'm gonna screw these. I'm gonna dominate this market." Well, you already do idea wise. Now you're just skimming money, and so so Trump and like Eric and Don Jr. are moving out of real assets into crypto. This is what the two of them are doing. They started American Bitcoin. They started World Liberty Financial, which just sounds fucking. Oh God, I made a joke to my and I might have you come on to do an episode of this because I'm gonna do this. But
Okay.
that after Trump takes over, NPR, he couldn't shut it down. So instead, he's just going to turn it into national prepper radio, just take everybody out of, that's there and replace them with all these maggots who are like, today we're talking barrels of pancake batter and what kind of ladder you want to, ventilation in a bunker is very important, especially if you've got a diet of almost entirely beans, right, Gary? That's true. And we're here by an endowment from the Blaze Foundation, selling the end of the world forever. Just like
have you seen the tiny airplanes and helicopters moving the tornado towards the town?
Yes. Oh, fuck me.
Right. Let's do a whole quiet, soft smoke and NPR sweaty balls kind of commentary on weather weapons.
Absolutely. It's absolutely. Especially after the new Bill Gates thing, which we'll finish out the show on, because I just love when the misreading of simple conversations about reality and attempting to present another solution, cause a cascade of they're going to burn down the world. The whole thing is they're going to boil us alive so that Satan can rise again or whatever. Like, well, they're trying to bring about the end of the world. Well, so is Jesus. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, dude, you do realize the world has to become total shit for Jesus to come back. If you want that to happen, you cheerlead it, I think. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, so this American Bitcoin thing. I want to talk about Eric and Don, because this business, they are, it seems like Ivanka and Jared are moving towards real assets. They are dealing with real financial assets, the Saudi wealth fund, which is building real places like golf courses for Trump and Trump named shit for after he passes away. And there's, and Ivanka can relaunch it as a Kardashian model, right? As the daughter who was blameless in the second, she wasn't there for the second term at all. Neither were the boys, though. Everybody is like fucking moving away from the stench, right? But more so her. But they're going to be dealing in real assets and the brand. Whereas Eric and Don have gone all in on this fucking Bitcoin nonsense. And right when they put their biggest fucking launch of shit, it took a dump. It just fell apart. So they have this World Liberty Financial is going to, there's going to be indictments, period, at some point, and it'll be on a state level and multiple AGs, because they're going to just fuck people out of their inheritances and their fucking nest eggs, no question. And then this American Bitcoin shit, is tied to, I think, and their crypto ventures overall, and what the cryptos that they're buying on the download. They bought this Indonesian crypto as a way of sliding money to some dude to buy influence. They're doing a shit ton of that, but they have a lot of attachment to Tether, which Tether is the cartel crypto of choice. Cartels use the Tether coin because it is pegged to the dollar. It doesn't go up and down. All of it is a stable coin. And that particular stable coin is how they're turning cash that, it's the new fucking car wash in Breaking Bad. Right. And there's a shit ton of Tether going through China. There's a shit ton of Tether going through South America. The irony being is that, and this is the same thing with what BRICS was going to be, is that now all these people are invested in the dollar remaining stable and if anything stronger than usual. So if you're trying to lower the dollar which is what Trump and Bessent and these guys are trying to do, so that there's an excuse to lower interest rates and we can kind of this necessary parts are the only way you rebuild after high interest rates. You can't do that if the secondary pressure is every gun runner, drug runner, and human trafficker on the fucking planet, including your buddy Vladimir Putin and Milei and whatever. The president of Venezuela and all these guys, they're your enemy, but you need them because they're creating this artificial pressure the other way. It's that is good for Don and Eric, but terrible for the United States. And so that's the problem with the level of corruption that we have here, and none of them understand it. And I don't know what I'm curious if you have paid any attention to this, because this becomes one of my like dig downs where I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like that's when things are bad. When I go, wait, what? No. Hold on. Let me look this up. Let me look that up. Now let me look that up. Now let me look that. So I went on this fucking tether pull on crypto over the last little bit. It was like my distraction of choice.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm not as up to speed as you are on the whole Donald Trump family crypto scam. But what I am following is the fact that crypto is being used as a way to bribe the president.
Yes,
that's certainly what's going on. Whether it's okay, we're going to invest $50 million. You're that Chinese crypto bro, and you're going to invest $50 million in Donald's meme coin, and in exchange, you're going to get pardoned by Donald. It's just this. It's crimes happening in plain sight.
Right.
It's bribery happening. I mean, and everyone see the headlines are clear. And the only reason why it's not being investigated is because Donald Trump has control over Congress right now, and obviously the Department of Justice. So these are all things that would obviously be pursued if we had, a legitimate tethering to the rule of law happening in our government right now.
Right.
But I mean, that's the track that I'm on following this, because this is just, it's so obvious. It's one of those things where you feel utterly gaslit by saying, well, look, it's right there. That's how they're bribing him. That's how they're buying their pardons. They're investing in his thing. And he's of course not divested from any of that crap, because he doesn't give a flying rip anymore, because he's been able to get away with thing after thing after thing. So,
Yeah. So I will say that Don Jr. is right about one thing. Like, and I give credit where credit is due. Here's a quote from him. I don't think anyone actually believes that my father would be looking at ledgers on the blockchain to see who bought what and carrying kind of favor with them, he said. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he understands any of this shit, asshole. That's why you behind the scenes are running the whole fucking thing. Like, here's the other thing. I think Don Jr. looks at ledgers all the time, and so does Eric, to see who's bought what and said, hey, Dad, they bought a shit ton of your meme coin, and these are family conversations, so we don't have to talk about any of this stuff with anybody, and it's it's over the phone, nothing's written down, or it's at home. They get together, they go to, like, when he goes to golf. Does anybody think that all of his golf trips are about fucking golf? Because he's golfing about half of, like, 6 holes before he taps out, and then he goes to the clubhouse, and then what's he talking about? He's sitting down with family members or taking phone calls. He's always on the phone, right? And he's doing it at his private residence, and so he's using these methods that he knows are protected by the American taxpayer. His phone calls are protected, and secret and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the CIA may be tapping him, for leverage later. That wouldn't surprise me, but. Or members of the CIA. I'll never say the organization itself, because I think that's where we get carried away. But Don Jr. himself is always calling and saying this stuff. And I don't think he understands the fucking ledger part of it. All they understand is $5 million went in, and we were able to take $5 million out. That's it. $10 million worth of this, and we sold it at that. The difference is that they can pump and dump it. So somebody pays $10 million for a pardon, buys Trump's meme coin or a crypto that they have a part in, or just frankly gives them the crypto via Tether, which is a $1-for-$1 thing. But if they use the meme coin or whatever, they just go in and talk about the meme coin and push it a little bit, and they'll see a little rise in its value. And so their $10 million bribe becomes a $10.2 million bribe. Like that's what they do with this. But I'm fairly certain that if this shit continues the way it is, one of the stories we're going to see in the next 10 years is Don Jr. getting killed in some Bolivian jungle, because that's what this Venezuela shit is about. That's what this Brazil shit is all about. That's what this fucking Argentina shit is all about. It's all about crypto mining facilities that are set up by the cartels to make clean money in those areas. And they are a huge player in the crypto market. And part of these like pardons that Trump is giving is this idea that there would be leverage and power in the growing crypto market down there, which is almost entirely drug related and fentanyl precursor and xylazine and all this other shit that they're buying and selling on the black market through China. They're using crypto to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Right. And a lot of this stuff is connected to his cognitive decline, because what's happening is you see a lot of guys coming into the White House or wherever, Mar-a-Lago, Bedminster, et cetera, Sterling, and saying, oh, Mr. President, look at this great idea we've got for this thing. And because he's not a details guy,
right.
because he's slipping into this well of cognitive decline, as I said.
His brain is turning to tapioca, is what I like to say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's turning into cottage cheese in there.
Yeah, right.
So what's happening is he's very easy to manipulate. We saw this with the 50-year mortgage thing, where a guy comes in, I forget the bureaucrat who came in, the Trump administration official comes in with a PowerPoint presentation, says FDR 30-year mortgage, Donald Trump 50-year mortgage, the greatest presidents is the headline across the top. And you go, okay, yeah, that's great. Let's do that. 50-year mortgage, great idea. And then he drops this thing on Truth Central. And even Republicans are like, what the fuck are you doing? 50-year mortgage? You have to be debt slaves? Is that what you want to, just a population of debt slaves?
You should be taking it the other direction, you dumb son of a bitch. You should be categorically saying, if you're going to do anything, do a tax break against the interest rate, which is very hard to maneuver. You'd have to, it's better to bring it down by the Fed. But during a time when, say, the interest rate goes above whatever, if you do a 20-year mortgage, there's a tax break to do the 20-year mortgage to encourage home ownership in a shorter period of time. But that's only if you give a fuck. That's a Sparks idea, by the way. You're welcome. But that you only give a shit about that if you care about the country after you leave office. Trump doesn't. So he's never going to think about stuff with a fucking 20-year sunset to it, because he doesn't give a shit.
Of course not. Yeah, no, absolutely not. And this has been his business model all along, which is to take someone else's idea and piggyback his name onto that idea. The Trump organization is almost entirely centered around licensing Donald's name to things that he didn't create, whether it's watches or vodka or whatever, the sneakers, NFTs. We can make some money on that. Great. No one's going to get their watches, and when they do, it's going to say Rump Watch instead of Trump Watch,
right?
Which is an actual thing that that actually happened.
Yeah.
But this is how he ends up buying in and getting connected to these large scale crypto scams, because I can assure you, Donald doesn't understand what the fuck crypto is. He doesn't understand the details of that. He just, his kids or the people around him sell him on these ideas, and he goes, fine, okay, good, we're going to do that thing that you talked about.
Yeah, well, apparently this was a thing back in the day, and it's one of the reasons why he went, bankrupt 6 times, was because anytime Don and Eric would come in and go, Dad, I got this great money-making ability, and it won't cost us a thing. We just license our name to this, and they pay us for this part of it, and we can leverage this that we don't even own against that. It was all this Armando Montalongo fucking stacking houses on houses bullshit. And that's why they ate shit a bunch of times, because there is an actual investment, and you are on the hook for leverage shit like this, and they don't understand any of it. But they would come in and give him this dog and pony show, and he'd go, do it. And then they would create a separate LLC, thinking it protected them. That's why he's got 1,500 fucking sub-corporations to the Trump organization, because he figured that firewalled everything. But it doesn't, because and that's where he was like, what? Like, we don't know that. That's a whole other company. Like, no, it isn't, asshole. Is that your signature? Yeah, but I didn't do it. That Don traced it on, whatever. They did this before. The same thing is true of the shoes and the fucking meme coin and all that kind of stuff. It's the same in the fucking White House. And
in fact, I'm convinced with the Pete Hegseth follow-on murders thing is this was something that was authorized by Donald Trump through the same process. Right. There are these two guys, they're floating on a thing, next to the wreckage. What do we do? Okay, kill them all. Yeah. And that's how that kind of shit. And obviously we don't know for sure that that's the way it went down. I think we're safe to assume it. But at the same time, this is just an example, or a possible example, of how Donald is manipulated into doing ridiculous things and scandalous things and criminal things. And then every action he takes after that is perpetually trying to retcon and fix the previous scandal. And then that gets him into another one. So it's this like Russian nesting doll of scandal and
analogy.
crime, one thing trying to fix the previous thing, and then he's got to do something else to fix the thing that he was using to fix the previous thing, and on and on and on and on and on.
Right.
And that is, I think, one of the most underreported stories of the ongoing Trump nightmare, which is that everything he does, every crime, is trying to cover up a previous crime. You can loop in Epstein, you can loop in crypto, you can loop in bribery, you can loop in, name it. And this is how he operates. Blurting something that gets him into deeper trouble, and then the next thing he's got to say something else to get him out of that previous thing. Well, it's an amazing dynamic.
Yeah. Now he's got basically the American taxpayer as his firewall against the comeback on this, and especially when it comes to what the Supreme Court has said as far as what he can legally do. So what the orders are going to be, and you're going to see John Yoo level fucking gymnastics and contortionism on this idea that Trump told him to solve this problem by any means necessary, within the law. And therefore, if I could shoot these people with a handgun, so can you, because I told you to use every tool at your disposal to end the blight of Americans being killed by drug dealers. That's what he's going to do, which is, and it's not going to work for Hegseth. He thinks it is, but it will only work for Hegseth if all the other shit Trump is trying against Comey and all these others gets thrown out too. Because the minute any of the people that like maggots are claiming they need thrown in jail, we need to round these people up. Why isn't Hillary and Biden and Hunter and everybody being arrested? Why isn't Christopher Wray in jail? Whatever, even though he was a Trump appointee, whatever. Why isn't that happening? Well, let me tell you, if one of them goes to jail over any of this shit, everybody in the White House is going to shit their pants right now. Because that means they're on the hook for all of his illegal crap. And they know it's illegal. There's a difference between like stuff that there's a debate about the validity of an order and the constitutional element of whether you had the power to give that order in the first place, and murder. You know what I mean? Like you can't, like we're talking about like forgiving home loans and student loans for people who are, who've been discriminated against or those kind of things. You can argue the constitutionality of it, and you could say that that's a financial crime, but when you're not the beneficiary of that financial crime, and you have to argue that you're buying votes to do it, even though you might lose as many votes doing it as you would gain, that's just you doing what you think is right in that situation. That's the argument they have to make. But when it's shoot the boat, oh, there are two guys still alive floating on wreckage, kill them too, that's just murder. That's, that's showing no quarter. It's a war crime. It's obvious. And when it comes to, the minute anybody goes to jail for stuff in the Biden administration that Trump forces Pam Bondi to lock one of them up, everybody in the Trump White House is on the hook for all that shit. And then everything he wants, his goals grind to a halt.
Right. And Donald knows that he is untouchable.
Yes.
And I think this also plays into his health condition too, because he knows that he can run out the clock on anything that he does.
But also that the clock is running out. Right.
Yeah. But he knows that if he's held accountable in some way, let's say the Democrats win next year, which they probably will, and they'll probably take over the House and the Senate. And that's, I think, don't get happy, but I think that's a very strong possibility. And the investigations begin. Donald knows that he will appeal this thing and this thing and this thing, take everything up to the Supreme Court, run out the clock on by abusing the legal jurisprudence process, which he's always done. And that's how he's been able to get away with this shit. So he understands that there will be no accountability. He will be dead before he ever sees the inside of a jail cell. Whether that's actually true or not is a different story, but that's what his mindset is right now.
Right.
And that's what's giving him carte blanche, at least in his mind, in his cottage cheese brain, that he knows that, okay, after 3 years from now, when I leave office, the next DOJ is going to come in and they're going to start investigating me. Good luck with that. It's going to be another 10 years before they get through all the layers of appeals that I'll throw in their path. Plus, he's got this ongoing legal slush fund that he can access in perpetuity, which means he can appeal not just court rulings, but he can appeal every stage in that process.
Right.
Every bit of discovery, every bit of evidence that wants to be introduced, he's going to appeal that and push the goal line down the field and unfortunately, manipulate the system to get away with this shit. I mean, obviously, there's a chance that he may not get away with that. And I want to be clear about that. I'm not closing the door on Donald Trump accountability, but that's how he thinks he can get away with all this stuff. That's how he's operating. That's his mindset.
Yes. And so I want to remind everybody, by the way, Bob Cesca has the Bob Cesca Show, bobcescashow.com. Check it out. Watch every episode. Join him in his chat room. Throw love his way. Period. End of story. And I'm holding you over, obviously, a little bit. So I appreciate that you hanging around past this point. But let me. There are a couple of things where I'm almost tired of being right. Almost. And I'm going to show you this. I think what I'll do is I'll just show the comms window and then I'll come back to you. This would be the easiest way to do this. This is last year. I don't know if you'll recall, but I said, no matter who is president, there's going to be an oil glut next year. There's going to be an oil glut. I said this and everyone stared at me like I was a maniac. That it didn't matter who's president, there's just too much fucking oil in circulation. And drill baby drill is one of the dumbest fucking things you could do right now, especially if you want to expand U.S. markets and actually have this stuff. Oil prices have been, this is just from Bloomberg fucking today. Oil prices have been falling as the market faces the prospect of a growing surplus. This year is set to culminate in the first major glut since 2020. The International Energy Agency forecasts in November that global supply will outweigh demand by 2.4 million barrels a day and expects the gap to expand a record 4 million barrels a day next year. 6.4 million barrels a day more oil than we need, than the world needs next year. Trump is going to be beating his chest, like, look what I fixed and look what I did. Has nothing to do with U.S. output. U.S. output has gone up as it's been going up on a minor level, on a slow growing arc as we get back to production levels post-COVID and then expand a little bit. And we're maxing out because there's this, profit, the cost of actually getting the shit out of the ground and selling it, and the minimal profit you can start making off that. That's what funds all of your fucking exploration digging. That's you're drilling. Yeah. And if you don't have a profit, you can't drill, baby, fucking drill. You just cannot. And there are only two ways you solve it: carrot and stick. Either the government forces them to do it, which is really fucking commie and strange coming from a Republican, or you pay them to do it. It's carrot. You give them tax incentives or a tax break, or you fund it for national security to produce more oil. But nobody's going to fucking do that when we got 6.4 million barrels of oil extra on the fucking market next year. Yeah. Gas is going to come down. Go ahead.
Record oil exploration, record oil production during the Biden years, much to my environmentalist chagrin. But that was absolutely the case. I mean, am I misremembering that? I think we passed a threshold during Biden when it came to domestic oil production.
Yeah, we beat, once you beat the record, I guess every barrel after that is still a new record, but they only measure it when it gets to in units of 100,000 or some shit like that. But basically every day once we hit 13 million barrels, which was 2022, beginning of 2022, somewhere around there, it just is record breaking all of the, okay. So, and we've got a capacity of, we take in, U.S. uses about 19 million barrels a day. That's the U.S. usage. We produce about 13.5 now, to a little higher, it varies. And if we could just get to 16, we would really only be buying like heating oil and that kind of stuff from cheaper markets, so that we could balance the cost of it versus what we overall use. But the U.S. could ultimately, through lowering the usage of it, which is why 19 was the peak, and it'll come down to about probably 17 or 16 max once there are enough electric cars and people are using solar on their houses and they have battery backups. And watch for solid state batteries to make people more comfortable with a battery system in their home. Then that's fucking game over. Then it becomes, watch maggots. The Trumps are going to sell, and along with Musk, solid state battery packs that don't burst into flames when there's a flood or a rainstorm next year based on shit like technology that they bought from China. I guarantee it. They'll sell the cheapest version of it as America First battery, whatever. But here's the key, and this is important to this, and I want to show you this real quick. And this is where I don't think people recognize it's not just the that you've got a bunch of. Hold on, let me put this in here. It's not just that we're producing a lot. Demand is falling. This is the crucial thing. There was an illusion about China for a long time that they were going to, that China's going to blossom. Basically, all of China as a country is going to be Shanghai or Xinjiang, which is the electronics market town, or Beijing. Like the three big markets there, and would like every minor city is going to grow to the size of Manhattan. And oh my God, the oil they're going to need, even if they just run power plants from it and shit like that. Even if they have all electric cars, they're still going to need to power them via petroleum or coal or what have you. And so, holy shit, right? This market is coming, right? Mm-hmm. And then all the industrial stuff, they're going to like all the fucking cranes and stuff that won't be electric that, for 10 years, they'll have to run on diesel. And oh my God, the market, they were just licking their chops at the idea that this market was coming. And Trump thinks it's fucking 1987. And that there's, and we just got out of the fucking 70s, right? Thinks the 70s just happened and like we were running out of oil. Now we need all the oil we could possibly produce. The U.S. should produce 20. If we need 19, we should produce 20. That's what he thinks. Instead of, how about driving it down so we never have to buy it from anybody awful ever again? But the Chinese collapse in that and the Saudis running out of oil meant that everybody around them is starting to just jumpstart their oil because they didn't want to catch shit from the Saudis. Would basically stiff arm anybody who was starting to, you could argue that they were the unseen hand when Iraq attacked Kuwait, for example, with slant drilling and that kind of shit, or the blowing up during the Iraq War of oil fields. The sort of Al-Qaeda related folks that did that were on orders from the Saudis to lower output because they were running out of oil and they wanted to make sure people weren't producing that much. But at a certain point, they can't keep that fucking cork in the bottle. They can't do it. And that's what happened this year. They had told everybody in OPEC Plus, like, hey, lower your output so we can keep the price a little higher. But even with the Russian stuff off the table, all the Russian oil off the table, basically because of sanctions, and war in the Middle East between Israel and Gaza, the price of oil didn't go up. It didn't go to $100 a barrel like everybody was saying, or $150, or fucking Glenn Beck catastrophizing about it 2 years ago under Biden. Like, Biden's going to drive the price of oil to $250 a barrel, and that'll be the end. That's Rome. That's the end of our society, right? And beyond being wrong, they were all being fucking brutally dumb about it. But that's that. Yeah. Like, everybody else has decided also they don't want a part of this fucking market. They don't want to have to rely on, the Middle East or the United States or Russia. There's the distrust in that, like, if we can make our own fuel, we can electrify everything, better to do that and take our lumps in the transition than to have to rely on the shit. And everybody's doing it almost at once. The only place where oil and gas are still king is South America and Africa. And even then, you're pouring fucking hand machine refined diesel into fucking tuk-tuks and little motorcycles and old Mercedes that would run on biodiesel. They're like, and there's no money there. Like, they're going to trade golden resources, but it's like these motherfuckers think it's 1904.
Yeah. Right. And I think one of the reasons why the fossil fuel industry gave Donald Trump $2 billion during his 2024 campaign was because of all of these factors that you just outlined, because of the diminishing demand for oil and so forth. So that's essentially why he continues to say all the crap about the windmills killing the whales and how stupid, darling, we can't watch TV because the sun isn't shining, darling, and all that bullshit. and drill baby drill. I mean, the whole drill baby drill thing, on top of it being derivative of Sarah fucking Palin.
Yeah.
It was also triggered by the fact that he got $2 billion during his 2024 campaign.
Right. Yes.
So these are all, it's like, okay, I'm just going to enrich myself off of these guys and not give a flying fuck where the actual economics of it are.
And the reason they did it was because they wanted to push back against the electrification of cars in the United States. They were worried about that trend picking up steam and putting them out of business in the long term. So they're like, hey, if we can just slow this roll using him, because it's inevitable. They know it's inevitable. Biden even said it in the last part of his term. He's like, the electrification of cars is inevitable. And I've often said, I don't understand why they don't sell it to maggots as freedom, because you can't refine oil even if you had a fucking tap in your backyard. But you could put solar panels out and slow trickle charge a car battery and drive it on your own. Talk about being off the fucking grid. You don't have to go to a gas station ever if you can pace yourself. And as that technology gets better and better and better, and you use, like geothermal mixed with other things at your house, you could supply all the power you need for your house and your car as they get more efficient and never have to go to a gas station ever fucking again. Imagine, if you will, I have a dream, Bob Cesca. Oh, I've got a dream today that everybody driving down the road never sees another gas station or power line. That's my dream. I have an idea that at one point, we're going to see this. The reclamation of power lines. It might not be within the next 5 years, but it damn sure is going to be within the next 20. And you're either going to see them decaying in other areas where they don't bother to use them, or they're still on an old grid system and people are just supplementing because they still got a power plant outside of fucking Evansville, Indiana or wherever. And people haven't quite made the transition because the technology hasn't gotten cheap enough so that the poorest do it. It's like landlines and cell phones. There was that tipping point where poor people now have cell phones easier than they could have gotten a landline. But for a long time, you needed the landline to protect people who couldn't afford a cell phone. The same thing will be true of grid electricity once this gets refined more and more. So when solar panels get to be at a certain efficiency level, and you'll have like little houses in an area joined together, and they just all pay for the cleaning of them like an HOA, and then that'll keep everybody running on, as in fucking retirement villages, shit like that. But that's going to happen. And so at that point, what the fuck is all those wires for anymore? That reclamation happens. Then the next one, of course, will be gas stations.
I'm one of these fusion true believers.
Yes,
I'm
me too.
not pessimistic or cynical about the advent of practical fusion energy. I think we're closer than we think we are. And once that happens, with the consequences are... And the positive consequences are astronomical.
Well, and that brings us
very much looking forward to that.
To the Star Trek's politics that you go into. I want to remind everybody, when are your regular episodes of that pop up? I mean, or irregular?
Every Sunday night. Every Sunday night on YouTube, trekpolitics.com.
Yes.
Me and Mary Trump. Yep.
Yeah, it's I think this ties into that as well, because you and I are both like futurists. I'm very bullish on technology as a solution, because again, all technology, another Sparksism, all technology is deflationary. And it computers will always get faster and cheaper at the same time. That's how it works. Yep. Even if they stay the same price, it's still cheaper because you're getting so much more so quickly for for what you're buying. So the thorium reactors and nuclear fusion, once that shift happens, and you'll see micronuclear as supplement, for emergency purposes in a bunch of areas, but that's going to be thorium largely once they get that off the ground. And again, there's going to be an acceleration where they're like, it's 10 years away, it's 8 years away, it's 6 weeks away. Like it'll go like that. That's how that technology works. Once that happens, the economy changes profoundly. When you no longer have to pay for energy at all, where you have autonomous ability, like when you're talking about one of the things Democrats could push for in the solarization of the United States, and and going, hey, if you have the potential for geothermal on a new build, you'll get a tax break for doing that too. Heat your water by running the pipes down into the ground, and back up, and even during the winter it will heat your water. That kind of stuff. Do that on new builds for a period of years, for a decade. Just give tax breaks to do that for everybody that can. And eventually there's this big shift over where almost no one is paying for energy anymore. You're heating your dryer uses hot water from the geothermal on the outside of it to dry your clothes instead of gas. Your hot water comes from that instead. My dad has a system on this he built into his house when he designed it. And so we were just looking at it while I was there, and I'm like, this is so simple. But that and AI, and again, there are a lot of people on our side. We tend to be more, I don't know, maybe there's a toss-up, because I think the Glenn Becks of the world, they're very Skynet about it as well. There's this, I would say there's a third on either side. There's a third in the center. They're like, it will be manageable. There will be good parts and bad parts. We'll try to maximize it like we did with the internet or the printing press. I mean, obviously, digital cameras, they were a boon to the Instagram photos of your lunch market, but also it makes it easier for people to trade CP online. And so you've got to manage, right? No matter what, every technology will have this downside. You got to work on it. So I think you and I are probably in that part. And then there's the, it'll bring around Skynet because AI is Satan, and therefore it will, it's just the way the Antichrist is going to be digital. That's the way the right-wing Alex Joneses of the world are dealing with it right now. And the huge chunk of them. And then on our side, it's like Skynet's just going to decide we all suck, because that's the prevailing myth amongst the fringes of our side, is that humanity is actually a barnacle or a flea or a virus or some nonsense that they were fed into their head by, some abject Democracy Now! Story back in 1991 that, humans grow not unlike a virus. Like, shut the fuck up. Anyways, that crowd thinks that Skynet's going to come to the same conclusion. This is like that would be the politics of the Fifth Element, where if she watches enough TV, she's going to decide that, right, when she's like, why should humans live? They're so terrible. And like, asshole, we didn't have those nuclear wars. You're watching testing videos. We didn't do it, obviously. Look outside. There's billions of fucking people. That didn't happen. We stopped warring, clearly, on any major scale. And your people are coming to kill us. Like another alien race is coming to just destroy us because we suck for no reason other than there's more of us than there used to be. Right? That would be the politics of the Fifth Element. It always confused me. I hate that shit. But so where do we go in that regard? And this is, I'll wrap up with this, and you, because I thank you for sticking around. The sort of politics of Star Trek, which is there are credits for stuff in the economics of Star Trek, for stuff that isn't just a necessity. And if you work for the Federation, I don't know that you would have a way of making those extra credits, or you would, I guess, just be assigned a few for your needs are being met, but you get a lower thing. Like the pay that you get is really just, almost like based on, it's like stunt pay, like a stunt bump. If your job is more dangerous or more technical than somebody else's, you might get a tech bump or a stunt bump. And that you can use to buy other stuff, which would give people the impetus to become better or whatever without pushing them towards risk. I've always had a hard time working that part of it out.
Yeah. While there is obviously currency in the Star Trek universe, I don't think in the Federation they still use currency. I think that's just, I don't think they get paid. I think it's a post-scarcity society, and just everything is provided for you that you would in previous centuries would purchase using your salary or your paycheck or what have you, your personal finances, because that ostensibly is part of this utopian society that we've gotten rid of the need for currency. We've gotten rid of the capitalistic system because it's share and share alike. All this abundance. We have replicators to make the food. You don't need to worry about buying food. In fact, you don't need to worry about buying goddamn anything because you can just replicate it. Right. And so why even have the need for currency? And so that's the Star Trek future. But, I wanted to. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was. Well, no, you finish your thought, because I will carry us down a cul-de-sac.
Okay, well, along those lines, carrying us down a cul-de-sac, I was going to ask you, going back to AI, because the concern that I have with AI right now is the AI bubble specifically.
Right.
And I'm wondering where you land in terms of the possibility that this AI bubble could go pop at any second and drag down the entire economy with it.
No, they're all. Here's a couple reasons why. The people attributed a lot to the .com bubble, but the .com bubble was attributed to things like Pets.com, where somebody would buy Pets.com and sit on it because the idea is I'm going to hold on to this, I'm going to sell it for millions of dollars to a company that wants Pets.com because that's the only way to get there. And then the minute like Tiny URL or something showed up, that mattered less. And now QR codes and all kinds of stuff will get you to the website. It's about the content, not about a certain bottleneck that other people wanted to make money bottlenecking it. The .com bubble didn't actually happen. It was a limited element of the .com world, which was the buying and selling of the titles that everybody focused on. But the internet is still here. Ask Amazon how the .com bubble went. Ask Meta. Ask even Shitter. Like that it still continued to grow within its capacity of function. A lot of it was a lot of barnacles got a lot of money thrown at them, dumb money early on. The issue with AI isn't so much that it's going to burst as an investment point. It's that it is going to move to that post-scarcity thing. And the only time it will burst is when it has solved for the post-scarcity idea. They're like, holy fuck, it can do everything. And there are two elements of that are a matter of function and time. White collar jobs and the digital part of that where people will have a co-pilot or a barnacle or a secondary them that helps them do work while they're doing other shit. So that if you have to leave your desk, hey, finish this report for me, I'll review it and show me the reviews when I come back. Like you have a partner at work, my kid is crying in the other room. And then you go handle that and then you come back and everything's fine. And then you pick up from there, which is something only rich people with an assistant could afford to do. Now that will be for everyone. And what I would say is that the AI bubble will be dwarfed by two things: Jarvis and robots. Robots will be the material thing where factories have to be set up to do all these things, and specialty and non-specialized humanoid robots will be the useful thing. The idea that upper middle class or middle class people could get a butler that could help them move to the next stage in their life without having to indentured servant a person or pay them under the table, or having an immigrant lady who's working because they can't afford a real nanny. They have to pay somebody under the table to do that. Eliminating that cost or minimizing it, which is, if you can buy a robot for $20,000 that will watch the house and walk the dog while you're with your kid, that is a thing that only rich people have been able to have in terms of facilities of human support. That will be replaced by, Roombas are an easy way of doing it. Like if you have to take up time mopping your floor, but if you had a Roomba that runs on a schedule, that time regained, if you use it, it could make you lazy, but maybe not. But most people just go, I'd rather not be doing this. I'd rather be doing something else. Even if it's just sitting watching TV with your family, you're doing something together as opposed to one of you doing it while they bitch at the rest of them for not helping. So that part is it got value. So the robot thing will take time though, because there'll be test markets and forward steps and 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that kind of stuff.
How soon? How soon is it going to be commercially viable robots that you can go to Best Buy and buy yourself a 2 years?
Within 2 years, yeah.
Wow.
They'll be the first ones are going to be sold out like the first iPhone. The ARC will be faster than smartphone integration because you will be able to buy one outright, which is what you used to have to do with a cell phone. But now you can do a plan with like Verizon or something where people will pay it off like a car, but with a secondary software service that will that you can pick. And there will be both premier ones like Figure 3 and which will be Figure 5 probably by the time it launches next spring. The X1 from Neo or from X1's Neo, the Neo one, and then there'll be sort of off-market ones that are open source. So if you're a little bit nerdy like you and I, you'll buy the one and then you'll choose which operating system you want in it. So in many ways, like I've got a little microcomputer that I run an AI on at home for just practice to see where this is all going. That I run Ubuntu on, which is a Linux-based, or it's a secondary OS based on the Linux system. So I'm not using Microsoft and I'm not using Apple for this thing. If you're even prone to do that at all, even with ChatGPT walking you through the steps, you'll probably buy an open source robot that can take you, and you can subscribe to whoever has the best service and gives you the most privacy and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to buying an Optimist and having, Elon Musk the ability to like put, kill whatever. That's what everybody's afraid of, I think, and reasonably so when it's somebody like that. But so within 2 years they'll be commercially available. They will be sold out immediately, and there'll be a secondary market while they go online. Within 5 years they will be so abundant that they'll be like Roombas or like those Shark vacuum cleaners, the really nice ones that you used to go like, oh shit. Yeah. $500, that's a lot, but it works really well. Okay. Like that kind of a decision. The robots are going to make the robots in a lot of these factories. Figure 3 the Figure company is already working on that setup. So the cost of labor will be zero for all practical purposes. So the cost of the thing itself will be a manageable cost for the first time ever. And they're going to be about the price of a cheap car. But you will also be able to, how your phone can have ChatGPT and you can talk to it on there if you haven't, or if you use Gemini or if you use Perplexity, whatever your favorite one is. Your robot will also be able to have an app that runs on that. So its personality and its interaction will come from your chosen AI that you use all the time. And if it's talking to a stranger, like the delivery guy, you could say, okay, to anybody in the family, you use ChatGPT and our family AI that works, that we all use, because it knows what's going on, our pets' names, all that kind of stuff. But if a stranger comes up and you don't recognize them, or I haven't introduced them to you, you use generic ChatGPT or use generic robot information. So you're not giving away, they can't negative prompt you into giving away my social security number. Those kind of things. Like that shit's going to be a part of it as well. The AI itself, there will be so many competing AIs, both local and, running lower rung things, that they're going to be everywhere. I've talked about how like there's going to be LAI. There's going to be Los Angeles' own AI that helps run all the street lights and all that kind of shit. There's already computers that run it, and they already run algorithms. This will just be a little bit better because it will be uniform just to the city, and they won't have to pay anybody for it. It will be a servicing system that you won't have to pay some giant corporation. The city won't have to pay taxpayer dollars for this. Once it's established and it's got a cloud base to work on, it's the cities. And it can listen, it will know the laws there better than anybody. It will crisscross them and it will help go, hey, if you're writing a law, you'll funnel it into there and go, about traffic stuff. You go, well, if you do this, we have a lot of these kind of tickets, and it will create more of those tickets or less of those tickets. Like it'll give you that kind of information. That's going to be the norm. That's what Star Trek is. That's where they put all that shit into those kind of things. So we don't deal with that. We deal with all the moral, intellectual, and sort of wisdom-based decisions that are good for humanity. We'll take that shit. We'll do the living, and you maximize our safety and happiness by whatever that means. Like that's what I. If you look at, it's a little Galaxy Quest more than Star Trek, but like, computer, right? Look, I have one job on this stupid ship. It's stupid,
repeating what
but
the
I'm going to do
says.
it. Right, yeah. Because it won't listen to anybody but her. But let me tell you something.
Yeah.
In Galaxy Quest, that's a thing. That in a concept around AI, having a designated comms officer that everything goes through in a room full of yelling people is incredibly important. And so you very well may see like AI priests around certain things, or AI directors around, like, this is the person we talk to and it talks computer. Like the computer is told, like, this is the mayor. So unless the mayor says it, so the mayor's going to have to read the bill out loud in their voice in front of a LiDAR scan that proves that it's their face and not just a photograph or a fucking AI generated video. That's going to be a thing. So it's a real thing. Just like Trump holding up his fucking dirty diaper, that's going to be a thing, at least for a while, right? That's going to be part of the shit that we go through. But it
kind of almost does. I mean, we're kind of at that stage where we almost have to do that now with I'm not going to say the name out loud for obvious reasons once I say it, but SIRI. If I say on my podcast something about the
Yes.
thing on my phone called SIRI,
Yeah.
then everyone's phones activate.
Yes.
Everyone who's listening to my podcast, all their phones go, yes, what would you like? And you
That's
see
right.
the little thing, the little rainbow thing, the dot appear at the bottom of the screen. And yeah, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. There's going to have to be like an AI whisperer.
Yeah.
Whether it's the mayor or the AI, what do you say, the AI priest who talks
Yeah,
to
right. That will be
God.
and I had this bit that I came up with that it was sort of based on an epiphany I had about all like Excalibur or Harry Potter or old like fantasy stories about the crystal of Aragon or the One Ring to rule them all or any of that shit. That basically it's those were the societies who are like I seek the magic word that I will speak into the garage door opener so that the great door of garage will open. Right? We're getting there. Like at one point I was like, you could before they were making like thumbprint things available. Like my house has a fingerprint door locks on it. And so anybody comes that's family or whatever, I just run them through the thing. It stores their fingerprint locally, so it doesn't go anywhere else. But it knows it, and if they need to get in any of the locks in the house, their fingerprint will do it, right? And then there's a punch code if I want to give them one, and then of course there's a camera on it all the time. Okay. At some point, I was like, before that came out, I was like, we need like a crystal that only you have. That if you need to lock down the house. Even if they cut your finger off, they can't use it because they must speak the word and place the crystal of Noctum in the thing, right? And I was joking, yes, right. I was joking about that, but I was like, that's basically what happened. Like this is how Atlantis is born. This is how and I will say that one of the things about Star Trek that I've been inspired by, and I'm curious your feeling about it, is the size of the ships, the utter and the beauty of them. Like they are, even the silly early ones with the satellite dish sticking out of the front of it, which is very V'ger,
right.
Which would just be like a mini asteroid catcher if they weren't careful. You would, with that technology, you would round it out this way. It would receive the things, whatever, and then you would just attenuate. Anyways. You don't have things that big without robots building them unless you use slavery. There are only two things that build mega structures: slaves or robots. That's it. And so one of the things about that's coming because of robots, and everybody's like, well, if you could 3D print a house, where do the people who built houses go? And like, well, one of the reasons we don't have enough houses is because it's expensive. It's expensive getting people to do this because it's dangerous and you work in the cold and in the sun and you get skin cancer and broken backs and smashed thumbs and the Lord's name being taken in vain on the regular. And right. And so you need robots, even if it's not 100%. There are going to be construction robots, both big and small, both, there's going to be a robot that walks around and does finishing nails. Will it look like a human driving a nail? Probably not. It will probably look like a Roomba with a nail gun in it, and it'll go tick, 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 along the outside of the thing. That's what it's going to do. And somebody's going to build that, and that's going to be the standard thing, and they'll get paid for it, but once it's there, it's there. And people will make homes that way. Once that happens, the cost of building a house and this goes through the floor. And so like the value of a home becomes in its construction and design, the artistry of it. Whether people want to build that, they can't build it exactly like I love this place and these humans still die, so maybe I'll buy this one instead of making one just like it. And I like where it is, and the environment's nice, the land is important. That will become a bigger part of it than the construction costs of doing it in the first place. And that was, and so I'm bullish on all of these things. More so than I'm worried about the jobs that will go away, because we were both importing cheap labor to do it because people had to send money home, because they were from impoverished countries, which this technology will also help because it will be very portable and you'll be able to build houses in Mexico and Guatemala and Africa the same way, and India in these impoverished areas will be able to use these things so they will live better without having to go someplace, work, and send money home. That's better. Again, if we're using renewables, if we're better at cleaning water and desalinizing water, like that will be a better way for people to live, and then that's when we start talking about getting off world. But if we get off world, it's going to be because of robots. It's going to be because we have people that can work in space without dying, and that's going to be robots for a very long time. And we're going to be sending up into space instead of 4 people sitting in seats like they're in a fucking minivan. We're going to be sending a bunch of robots in a in like a cone shaped holding shape, like whatever, how many we could fit in there. One of them balled up in the center like the fucking like the pit of an avocado, right? And then the rest of them all laying out behind them, just completely overlapping with their disjointed fitting in this thing. And then as soon as they get out, they walk around and build stuff on the moon for us. Yeah. Right. That's where it's going. And it will put
absolutely.
And then the question of life will be all work becomes the focus is a career. What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What you love? And anybody who has needs that can't catch up with the rest of society will have such a low cost of living, it won't matter. That you could live on a certain Star Trek UBI for those folks that would have just been able, if you're talking about intellectual and physical capacity. And that's what everybody's talking about. And what everybody's talking about is what happens to all the people who aren't smart enough to do anything but operate a forklift. That's what everybody's talking about. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but that's exactly what they mean. And if you're going to talk about that, then you go, okay, the cost of goods and services and homes and clothing will be so low that those people will not have to suffer to get those things. We will eliminate the suffrage of their life to that. And if it means that they become, it's my 600-pound life with some of them, then so be it, because it's better than the number of people that lose their hand on an assembly line so that we can all have fucking cheap Cabbage Patch dolls, or Xinjiang people being like this. The cost of labor has become such a faculty of our lower prices that even China uses slave labor from Xinjiang to cut the prices of their already low labor costs. And everybody's like, people are going to lose jobs because of these robots. Yes, people in China, slaves in Xinjiang, slaves who are digging cobalt mines in fucking Africa. They're going to be the first ones to not be doing this anymore. And what they will be doing is living in their country and eating food and stuff provided by the goods and services that are from there, because it is to be hoped that they as a people will be able to sell the goods that are in their country, the resources that are there within reason, to people who need them, if indeed they need them anymore, because again, innovation will fold a lot of these things. So I don't think there's going to be a bubble. I think there's going to be ripples and back and forth as but the biggest problem for AI companies is that they are currently and robot companies too. They are currently in the business of putting themselves out of business. Whether it takes 5 years or 10 years or 25 years, they are putting themselves out of business. Because if robots are building robots, and then you could buy a robot and you could buy 10 robots, and those 10 robots can build a robot that you have because you can, get the materials to use it, or buy scrap and make more robots, or they can fashion them from whatever's around the house. Eventually you get to a tipping point where there are enough. And those things can be loaned out to do other things, and then labor goes to zero. That's the window. Everybody thinks Andrew Yang has popped up on the scene because they think it's going to take a year and a half. It's not. It's going to be a lot longer, but it's going to happen. And the same thing is true of AI running what we effectively think of as the white collar element of our society. This is the first technology, I will say, that doesn't eliminate old people. It eliminates young people. So the difficulty will be, what are young people going to do until they grow, have skills, but grow to have enough wisdom in life to be the decision maker at a business, and go, I think people will like if we change the flavor of this to this, not markets say this, polls say this, is just the only data an AI would have. I think, this is, and people like history and stuff made by humans and all that kind of stuff, that kind of wise decision is often made by older people. And young people are going to have a hard time getting into that market without experience. Does that sum it up?
Absolutely. I'm finding myself using AI, and I think for more practical purposes. I'm not as deeply ensconced in it as you are, and certainly my brother, who's a chiropractor, is developing all kinds of apps and software for the chiropractic industry using AI and ChatGPT. So I'm not that deep into it, but it's becoming more and more intertwined into what I do. For example, I use a platform for my podcast where it creates magic clips,
viral clips,
my show to use, like viral clips after the fact, and I'm so spoiled now because there's a chat assistant, there's an AI assistant on that platform where I can type. I say I got a 16:9 clip that they've made of my podcast where it's me and let's say you and I talking on my show, and I want to make that. I want to reformat that clip so it fits TikTok and Instagram Reels. So I type into this AI assistant, reformat the layout of this so it's 9:16 rather than 16:9. And suddenly, like with the transformer noise, suddenly I've got a vertical oriented video clip that I can post on TikTok and Instagram. Now it's like if I'm confronted with a platform that doesn't have that, like, what the fuck? What am I doing? How do you mean I have to do this manually now? That sucks.
Well, you're Scotty. You're Scotty in Star Trek 4.
Exactly. Hello, computer. Exactly right. And then I'm speaking into the mouse. Yes.
How quaint.
Hello, computer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And so I find too in my car, I have that CarPlay thing where I can connect my cell phone to the dashboard monitor, and there's no AI in there, and I find myself getting frustrated when I'm saying, no, I don't want to hear that. I'll say to my car, I don't want to hear that playlist from my Apple Music app. I want to hear this other playlist, but start with this song. And suddenly SIRI is going, I don't know what you're saying, Bob.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, that's about to change too. Wait, that's about to change.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Before the spring, Siri is supposed to get that smart jump, and they were going to attach it to OpenAI, but now it looks like they're going to use Gemini as the underpinning of it. But I think it'll probably have a mix of, it'll use the personality of one and the hunting, fishing version of Gemini because Google has that going on. But it'll do exactly that. And what it'll do is you're going to have localized AI on all the new iPhones, so they won't need to go to the cloud to do it. It'll understand most of those things there. And that's the other thing that people are hearing about. Like, oh my God, it's going to use Trump even with this bullshit about like, it's going to use 3 times the amount of 100% more energy than we need for the history of we're going to have to burn down every forest to feed AI if we're going to survive, that kind of shit. And in reality, like, it's shrinking all the time. It's requiring less and less. So even these mega structures that they're building as these cloud facilities are going to be half empty by the time they're done making them. Even the XAI one in Memphis, like, he's only building one that big to catch up with the other guys. Once he does, and they've created the model and it's interpreted as much detail as it needs, because there's only so much it can actually incorporate as far as the physics of the universe, reality, information we have, until it becomes an information gathering AI, which means it needs a Hubble. Therefore, it's got to build its own, like satellite thing to gather all information about physics in the universe if it needs that kind of shit to do what it's doing. Once it's got it all, it's got every book, it's got every manual, it's got every newspaper ever recorded. Once it starts asking people to, like, you got old newspapers that weren't digital before the digital age, go scan those for us and we'll pay you. Like, that's where we're almost to that point. Once it does that, though, it trains the model to know this stuff in a capacity that is different, much closer to the human brain, that is smaller in its scale than, say, the books that would be required, or the discs that, I guess it would be books, tape, discs, solid state hard drives. That's the size of the environment to hold that stuff. It actually holds all that information in a much smaller space. So, and it uses less energy. I'm like, I can run an AI on my little localized computer that's as good as ChatGPT 4, that has all the information that ChatGPT 4 has, and be completely offline, and it's like 25 watts. It's nothing. Like, it's a tiny little computer. And that's just going to get better. Like I said, it's all deflationary. And then that starts getting smaller and smaller. Then we start talking about chips. So since we're in the last 8 minutes
also,
of the show, yeah.
Yeah, here's the curveball. Quantum computing. Add that into the mix, Al.
Yeah.
Quantum computing is
Bye,
also,
crypto.
you combine quantum computing and AI, and let's talk about a game changer
Well,
for literally everything that we know of in the universe.
That's right. That's where crypto has its strength, is that you can create stuff on the blockchain that's uncrackable. It's, because that's what protects your investment. Well, once quantum computing comes on, it can solve the crypto equations. Bitcoin, by the way, as soon as quantum computers come online, crypto Bitcoin vanishes, because it can find all of it in a second, and it can and it can also scramble your fucking wallet and take everything out of it. It can break whatever your code is that protects your crypto. That's you want to talk about a fucking runway that they're running out of, and that's not that far away. Yeah. Holy shit. You're going to talk about we're much closer to John Wick and Ayn Rand currency being in a physical form, because we still don't have a way of, digitizing that. And people are going to go, I'm back to cash, because so many, we're almost close to a version of that there'll be a barter and trade system that goes along in adjunct to the digital system. So yeah, quantum computing in and of itself. But then I'm obviously not going to get a Neuralink, which, by the way, fans of 80s sci-fi will, if you watch the opening of $6 Million Man, that's what the attachment of his eyeball to his brain is called. The piece of, you look on that's where they got the name, the Neuralink. He steals everything. And Colossus, by the way, is not from the X-Men. It's an AI supercomputer in I want to say a 70s movie. Let me look it up because I won't remember. Yeah, The Forbin Project. There's a movie called The Forbin Project in 1970 about Eric Braeden stars as Dr. Charles Forbin, who has created a supercomputer named Colossus, built solely for the purpose of controlling the nuclear defenses of the world. There we go. But what the computer does with that unimaginable power to its creators, there he goes. He makes basically it's Joshua from War Games.
Yeah.
And him, Elon Musk calling his XAI facility Colossus is to hide the fact that he was going to call it Joshua, because that's what they're talking about. Except Colossus actually does kill everybody. It actually does. So it creates a first strike and responds to that first strike and all this other stuff. And so the Forbin Project and you can't find it anywhere. This movie has disappeared. So I'm fairly certain he bought the rights and shelved it. If you want to watch it, maybe it's on, you can see trailers for it on YouTube. Okay. But that's where he got the name from. So these assholes are just so fucking on the nose. So the question, though, I'm not getting a Neuralink, and even if they can rebuild me and make me stronger, faster, et cetera, and introduce me to a Lindsay Wagner clone. So there will be, at some point, a version of Neuralink that is either permanent or semi-permanent. My dad had a cochlear implant. So he had a little magnet right here and a little resonant thing that they put in there, and then you'd put on the hearing aid part of it when you wanted to use it. You could take it off. And I think that's more than likely what you're going to see before. I mean, there will be people in Japan and people who stood in line for the iPhone and the iPod when it came out who will get the chip right away. And I've joked that I can't wait for my iPhone to become a iPhone. I want it just melon ball my eyeball out and just put the fucker in there. Just get it over with. I'm tired of looking for it, right? You imagine getting off you leave the subway and you're like, oh fuck, my eyeball. I left my eyeball. Feel naked without it, right?
I left my eyeball in my other pants.
What would it take? What would it take for you, Bob Cesca, host of Trek Politics and futurist that you are? What would it take for you to get some form of surgical implant, or again, a 50-50 one, which again attaches to you but can be removed, which I think will be the thing. What would it take for you to commit to that? To do it?
I don't know that I would ever do it. I don't know. I can't conceive of a situation where I would allow that to be implanted into my head. It would, I think the closest I would come is if there were some sort of external device that through some sort of brainwave Wi-Fi attaches wirelessly without any sort of actual physical interconnectivity to my brain. I would I think use that technology. I wouldn't use anything that required some sort of mechanical implant. Although, look, as I'm poo-pooing that, my mom has a pacemaker. We know people who have mechanical implants to keep them alive on some level. And so I think we can't entirely eliminate the possibility, but as far as something that isn't necessarily there to keep me healthy in particular, I don't know that I would agree to something like that. I don't know. My answer to that question is no, probably nothing. Yeah.
I think that's why we see so many headbands and crowns both in sci-fi and in fantasy.
Yeah.
Because let's imagine a world where you had to be the one that spoke to the AI. You know that tribe that built airplanes because the World War II pilots flew in and helped them, and so there's been that story about those guys who built mock-ups of planes like they thought they were angels, and to the American military. And I think I've made this point for a long time, but the human brain, 125,000 years in its current form. Hasn't gotten better, hasn't gotten worse. It's about the same in 125,000 years. And in 200 years, we have gone from steam engine to nuclear power and off planet. And with the same brain.
I was just talking about this last night with Kimberly. Oh my God, it's amazing that you're bringing this up because I was just having this conversation. Crazy.
So
yeah, that's it.
It's time to blow the minds. So the question is, how many times have we done this? Right? That would be we build to Atlantis and then puh, and then we did and then puh. And then the idea is that the vast majority of people that were on the planet at some point of a certain ilk just went, fuck this joint, and left. And then everybody was left behind, didn't know how to run anything. And then it collapsed, and after about 10,000 years, everything basically turns back to rock, gravel, and soil and water. And they have to start from scratch. But they, like these people that built these mock-ups of airplanes, maybe the people who ran the supercomputers and stuff wore these crowns and headbands that they could take off and still be a human being, but when they put it on, allowed them access to this incredible computation ability, incredible knowledge, and all this other stuff. And so all the crowns that you've seen royals wear over the years with gems in the center of it and stuff like that, like my seeking of the great garage door opener of Garage, it's like them wearing a garage door opener on their fucking forehead without the mechanics of the garage door. Like the people with the garage door left, and they're just wearing the thing on their head and going, I have the power of Garage, and once the enchanted ones arrive and reinstall the garage door opener, the people of Homa Depot or the people of Loe shall deliver unto us the great garage door. I and only I can click this and open the garage. That there's an element of every old sci-fi movie. I kept seeing everybody wears headbands. Big in the 70s. And I think this was their part of futurism, is like, how human can you be and still use all of this shit? How can you start the singularity without ending humanity? And the obvious thing is wearable jewelry. Bindis themselves, you could argue, would be another example of this, that there were these high-order human beings who contacted everything with like a vision, from the Avengers-style chip put in their forehead, that you can remove, but when I put it there, the technology is so high that I can talk to the computer and do all this kind of shit, but if I need some alone time, I just peel the fucker off and break it and get another one, later or something. In Logan's Run, everybody had these like thin headbands, like they would put a piece of string. I'm like, that didn't keep sweat off your head, so what is that? And I was like, maybe that's where it goes. Maybe that's what we're talking about, is that, glasses are becoming the thing with the meta glasses. Maybe we all just end up having some sort of like over one eye kind of thing, or a piece of jewelry. And that piece of jewelry, your little, pendant, is enough to hear your voice, know it's you, and you could tap it like a transmitter thing, and it knows you're talking to it, and then you can tell it to shut the fuck up. Eventually, it learns what you need. So maybe you're right. Maybe it doesn't become something permanent, but you're wearing like headbands and that kind of stuff that connect to your head, that allow you to interact with this thing, that you can take it off if you don't want to do it anymore.
Right, and we're kind of partially the way there, aren't we? With the rings that you wear that connect to your phone and can actually monitor your health condition, and so that's a big step forward toward, I think, that solution, because I think you're going to find a limited market for implants, and ultimately it's going to end up being a wearable device that somehow links up to your brain. I would be surprised if they weren't already working on something like that.
So I have
that can scan whatever you're thinking.
Yeah. So I have this little thing that like TikTok people apparently can use this if they want to be super lazy, where they can flip through videos. You can go up or down, and it's basically a page up, page down kind of thing. And I was like, maybe I can use this on the show when I'm changing scenes, where I don't have to stick to this thing. I can switch back and forth through what scenes I'm in and that kind of stuff. So, and these are super cheap, and they're silly and whatever the fuck. And you wear them like a ring or something, but I don't think it's that far off. Imagine, if you will, like every piece of jewelry we've ever worn, every crown, every wedding rings, whatever it was, are a mock-up of a primitive brain's version of Neuralink jewelry.
Yeah.
That's where it all came from. That the king was the guy who was the AI priest. And once we get to that point, okay, we got to settle this down. Everybody stop yelling. The AI is getting confused. It's going to kill us all. Well, one dude, and he can put on the AI hat and talk to it. And you guys shut the fuck up, right? Stop calling SIRI. Right. You're confusing her, right? I don't see that as being out of the realm of reality, right?
And are you a subscriber to the Saurian hypothesis about there being previous intelligent civilizations on Earth? Is that where you're kind of getting at?
It makes sense to me. I would argue, I think I'm much closer to the sim concept, that that we live in a simulation that is meant to mature us. And you and I are probably in the 3rd to 5th grade level of this, which is why everybody seems stupid half the time, and yet it's still cute and exciting and shocking and all kinds of stuff. And that that this is the way I've always put it. I'll let you go because we're over the 2 hours, and I appreciate you sticking around. And Bob Cesca Show.
My pleasure, man.
Trek Politics. I've missed you, sir, and it's good to talk to you. And thank you for being my first guest back after
thank you.
This current awful. You and I'll have a coffee at some point and sit down and talk about our dads.
Yes.
It'd be good. And here's what I think. So and I have impetus for this, Nick Bostrom and his theory that mathematically we live in a simulation because that makes the most sense and blah, blah, blah. But here's what James Gates, Obama's science advisor, there's a video of him freaking out Neil deGrasse Tyson, talking about how when they were looking at the mathematics of the universe, they found computer code. And not just any computer code, not just strings of ones and zeros or a mockery of it, but specific computer code written by a guy named Claude Shannon. Well, Claude Shannon worked with Alan Turing. And Claude Shannon was working on the first user interface for a computer. That's what he did. That's what his gig was. So Turing had the on-off ones and zeros machine. How do we get this smaller and smaller so that everybody can use it and you can interact with it as easy as possible? And I would argue that AI is yet another version of UI. It's just another user interface that flips the switches for you depending on what you ask. And it can be right and wrong because you have to work out those equations by talking to it instead of flipping switches. That's all it is on a much higher scale. So here's what happens. In 1940s, Alan Turing and Claude Shannon create a computer that is so smart and in short order, within 20, 30 years, becomes so smart that they get AI like we're talking about in what would be effectively in the 70s, in real time. And that happened 3,000 years ago. And in that 1970s period, over the next 50 years, they solved world hunger, they solved like food scarcity, medical issues, cured all diseases, automated all physical labor, And humans became basically high order beings that just focus on the value of life and living, family, art, invention, curiosity, all the things that humans are actually capable of that AI can only reference. AI would need us to be original. So, but at that point, you live to be 3,000 years old. Humans live that long. And my argument is, would you ever let anybody under the age of 100 walk around in your pristine 3,000-year-old world where everybody gets along, there's no war anymore, there's no scarcity? Would you have somebody go through their hormonal cascade as a human being and become, all these dumbasses running around like a bunch of hicks, like the Beverly Hillbillies, and Sanford and Son all rolling up at once to your pristine Atlantis? You absolutely would not. So how do you train your kids in that situation without them being kids? You send them to a school where they are immersed in a ancestor simulator, and they live entire lives, thousands of lives, over and over and over and over again to mature them as victors and victims, as inventors and impoverished people, as the weak and as the strong, as man and woman, as whatever, and back and forth. In different societies through different timelines and different experiences. Some are just for fun. That's the time of angel fighting and all that kind of stuff. At one point you had wings and you had a sim where you flew it around like a video game and you learned basic good and evil concepts. And then as you get more mature, you get into the murky stuff of deep philosophical lives. And instead of studying math, you live multiple lives as a mathematician. Instead of studying music, you live multiple lives as a musician. So you learn it intrinsically to yourself. Each new life, you forget what you learned because they stop your brain from remembering. But when you come out, you remember all of it, all the lifetimes. And by the end of this, after 10,000 lifetimes and about 5 years in school, because you can do it in an hour, you walk out 20-something with the life experience of 10,000 human beings who live to be 80, 90, 110 years old. And wow. you are matured in a way that is materially impossible in our lifetime. So that when you're allowed at that age, which will be about the age you will maintain because you will not age like we do, we will have cured aging in that theory, you'll walk around with that depth of maturity. And you'll understand the other people that are there because you have seen so much love and death and hope and fear, and you've gone through that. You beat your fear. If you look at like defending your life, there's an argument that that's what they're just leaving the sim in this argument. That's what I think we're actually in. That's why some of it's so silly and why there's those little coincidences and stuff, because it's programming. And sometimes some people are here and they get hints because they need them. Some people have a guide, so they're very religious. They're literally brought here by a teacher's assistant named Jesus, and he walks you in and I'll be here when you're ready to go. But you're young, you're 7, whereas there's some 15-year-olds here who don't necessarily need that anymore. They view themselves as atheists because they're like, I don't need you, I'm fine. I'll do this by myself, right? That's that, and then you go back and forth, and it isn't God on the other side of this. It's humanity. It's a higher level of humanity. It's learned its lesson, that's bettered itself, that lives in peace and harmony, that celebrates diversity and differences without being attenuated to it, and honors creativity and happiness and exploration and excitement, love and adventure over everything else, because that's what makes us human. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. And it doesn't have to, it's not metaphysical at all. It's just, I think it's actually just a material reality.
I'm so there with you. In fact, I've been thinking about this since going back to Star Trek. There was a Next Generation episode. I believe it was called Ship in a Bottle. And it revolved around this holodeck character named Dr. Moriarty, who in Next Generation is Sherlock Holmes's nemesis. And he becomes self-aware. This holodeck projection becomes self-aware, and in order to ameliorate his discontentment with being stuck in the holodeck, Geordi creates software that simulates the entire universe and sticks Dr. Moriarty and his wife, I haven't seen the episode in a long time, but sticks them into this program where they believe they've transcended the holodeck and are now free to roam the universe, free to roam the galaxy, but it's all a simulation that happens in this cube that sits on someone's desk. And ever since I saw that, I was like, yeah, you know what? From a technological point of view, I could see that as being something that would be entirely feasible. Maybe not within our lifetime, but something that could
Right.
happen in the distant future for sure. And that's what got me to thinking about the simulation theory. And I'm
Yep.
sure that it wasn't original, wasn't unique to that Next Generation episode, but it was certainly drawn from some hypotheses that were presented along those lines. And because
What
all of Star Trek is drawn from actual science.
Yeah, what I like about it is that it retains all the moral aspects of religion without all the indebtedness
Yeah.
to something that's a ghost or an unfalsifiable reality. And it also
Right.
requires a commitment to this life that you know asides suicide and all those other things, because there's value in going through all of it. So you'll be
Yeah.
okay on the other side. You know, this is just a movie, but movies serve a purpose: education and entertainment. And all of these lives
Yeah.
we live serve education and entertainment. And as tough as they are, they come with, you know, that's the price of beauty in this space. Anyways, it might not be on the other side of this, but the value of it is that you know, it can keep you, you know, engaged in this stuff. And it doesn't mean that people suffer for no reason. It's that suffering actually serves their maturation as a human being on the outside of the simulation. In the same way that when you play a video game, you know, dying in the video game, even horribly, doesn't necessarily affect you, but it builds your skill as a player, right?
Yeah, right.
There's no real death in it, and it might be annoying and scary and irritating at the time, but the reality is that it makes you better at playing the game. And so there's an element of game theory, I suppose, that goes with this. I also think that it removes the metaphysical and makes it super physical. That the metaphysical is actually the space we're in, and the physical is outside of it. And that what better way though to create, like, to learn something than to have a simulation where you live a life as a winner in an area, or even a failure, as you know, like, this is what I learned from this is if I'd only gone for this, or if I'd worked a little harder at this, or if I'd trusted myself or trusted someone else that I loved a little bit better, I would have been better. Let me go back in. I'm going to try it in this next life, run through similar things. That's why the old idea that you reincarnate with friends, that's been around for a long time. That would make total sense. Those would be classmates, I guess. People or family members. That makes sense, right? And none of it's mystical.
Yeah.
None of it is like airy fairy. Like, I think this is a logical way you would teach your progeny in the future.
What's the purpose of this subjectivity of this theory, where you're in this avatar experiencing your life in this simulation, but you don't realize that you're this other consciousness that's inhabiting the avatar? You're actually fully immersed in the experience. I guess I just answered my own question.
Yeah, right.
In order to fully immerse you, to make you believe that that the simulation is fully real and that you're a real character in this,
to really learn the lessons.
Is that the point of it?
Yeah. Imagine. Yeah. Okay, so think of the movies you used to like watch when you were a little kid, and you know, even the cartoons you used to watch. Like, I love the Charlie Brown specials, and I view them every so often, and I think they're adorable. But my favorite animated feature of all time is Ghost in the Shell, which, by the way, there's a lot of this in that as well, I'm sure. But as you get more mature, the depth of your experience, you can get tired of kind of rudimentary Pong-like video games. You want something that has some depth to it, some cutscenes, some character. And so if you'll notice, games, as they get more complicated, have these kind of storylines embedded in them. And that it's not about just winning and losing against a team, but you know, you're carrying out a quest or something like that. And you can see that people who play a lot of games end up moving in that direction. The same thing would be true of a simulation. That there's in the beginning, you may be aware. You may be just in a little, like, amoeba simulator splitting. You're like, oh, this is the experience of splitting cells, and that's what it feels like on a baseline. So you could take a biology class by being a single cell organism that evolves into dual cell, and you break apart, and you feel all of that when it happens, and that teaches you what it's like and how it works, as opposed to just watching it on a, you know, like you and I had somebody with a film strip going clunk as a record plays, right? So as it gets more complex, you need it to be more complex, and your commitment to that complexity gets higher. So I would argue that the people who go through the most challenging stuff in life, people born with spina bifida or other diseases, people who go through, you know, like horrible victimization and that kind of stuff, these are people who on a you could call it spiritual, but in the real sense have gone, okay, let me deal with some of these really hard lessons in life. I'm going to take these on, and it's going to suck. It's going to feel real. I'm going to commit to not knowing that I can just close my eyes and not be here anymore. And in doing that, I will understand suffering when I come across it in the real world in a way that is more profound than if I'd ever just heard about it. And that has value. So you would absolutely commit to this horrible experience. It's not that God, why would God allow, good people to be hurt? It's that good people choose to experience that hurt so that they can learn the empathy lesson. And I would argue there are waves of classes that probably come through this school that are afraid to learn that lesson. And you can see that like maggots are rejecting the idea. These are people who got into the game and said, okay, I'm going to learn my lesson, and now are rebelling against it in class, and they get a D when they get out, and they have to do it again. You're like, that's what it means when you don't learn your lesson. You don't have a choice whether to learn your lesson. You have a choice whether to learn it through joy or through pain, I think was the thing in the I want to say Course in Miracles, but anyways. But that would be the idea, is that the deeper you want to learn it, the more committed you would become. And there may be cartoon universes where your commitment's very low, and you just go in it like you play it like a video game. You're like, okay, how am I going to learn to dance? I'm taking a dance class, and we're all cartoon characters, and I'm learning these motions like it's like the Matrix. They shove. I know kung fu, and without the spike. But what's your real lesson here? Both the challenge of learning something on a cellular and soul level, muscle memory, and the psychology of it, the spirit of music, the spirit of art, the spirit of engineering, diving into that without all the previous tools you have. So of course you would want to forget it. It would be important that you do. So you learn from scratch each time, and that process of learning from scratch is what teaches you deeper every time. Because if there's a thing you missed, the only way you're going to find it is not by somebody just telling you, but by going past that off-ramp you missed every time and going, oh, fuck, right there. Okay, that's what I was supposed to focus on, why I couldn't learn it or whatever. And it's only an hour of your real time outside the sim, even though it feels like 85 to 100 years here.
Right.
And I'm going to let you go because I've held you way over, and I love you, and we need to have this conversation like regularly.
Yes. We could be going another couple of hours, because I was just going to go into the realm of reenacting. The whole idea of like Civil War reenacting is a very similar concept, believe it or not.
Ren fairs, fucking Burning Man, going dressing up at Comic-Con. We learn through imitation, and the more deeply we feel it, and the more commitment we have, the deeper we learn those lessons. If you're just doing a sim of the Civil War, right, every year, which I've been in, by the way, that picture famously of my dad and I in buckskins, that was taken the day
I should show you. It's in the other room. I've got a glass plate photo of me in full Union regalia in the other room. There you go. I wish I could show it to you right now.
Yes. Yeah. So that comes from, if you're just faking it, as it were, every year, like you would go to a Ren fair or something, it might take you multiple times going there before you finally felt like, today I felt in it. And I understood what it was like to be there, even to a small degree. And that taught me a lesson about what these people went through that I had taken for granted. For example, that's what you would do. Well, if you could do that on a mass scale with a headset and a neural pump, whatever, you could do it at home. Fuck. You go like, I want to watch this. I want to watch Braveheart, but I want to be William Wallace and go through all of it. Not just watch his wife's throat get slit and ride into town thinking they're going to probably kill me. I probably won't survive this. Not just watch that scene happen, but be in that scene. Be her, even. Be, and even if you want, if you're a wise ass, be the king or whatever, The problem with Scotland is it's full of Scots. Right? Learn your lesson by dying of tuberculosis while she whispers that your progeny's actually going to be Scottish. Right, that kind of shit. There's value in commitment. It's like when you're watching your favorite movie and somebody's talking during it or going, "That looks fake." Like, shut the fuck up. I know it looks fake. I'm suspending my disbelief because I want to feel this. The same thing. How far? So, cave paintings to little music banging on drums to plays to Athenian and Grecian, like theater productions about the gods, to Shakespeare, to movies, to VR. where does that go? Of course it goes to the inevitability of it being a simulation. And the Nick Bostrom's math is that if it's inevitable, and we've had the same brain for 125,000 years, there's no way it hasn't happened already. That's the theory. And it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does make sense. It's just that, but it doesn't take away the value of this life. It doesn't take away the value of your relationships and the love you feel and all this stuff. And if anything, it expands the depth of empathy and value of what people are going through because they have chosen to go through this so that they can learn outside of this to be a better human, be a better being. If we're indeed still human at that point, right? That's the other thing. If we don't look like Avatar people or something, and go like, you can't learn these lessons when you're this fucking tall. So we're all gonna, well, I mean, some of us can, but yeah. But that's, that value, that obvious value, like that's where we're headed. That's where AI brings us. That's where robots bring us. The question is, haven't we already gotten there before? And then maybe that's what this whole arc is. You going through several lifetimes, and you start out in buckskins and camping and lean-tos and native tribes and shit like that in your lifetime. And then as you're entering to the school, and you go through several lifetimes that wind up to the singularity. So you're eased into it. So when you walk out into it actually operating, you're not like, what the fuck? Like I've always said, like everybody's like, Daniel Day-Lewis was method when he did Abraham Lincoln. Like, no, the fuck he wasn't. Because if you were method, you were really Abraham Lincoln, you'd go like, what is this furry thing that they are holding in front of my face? What are these giant contraptions? How are you making light on these? Like you would just go like, there's a chair that says Mr. Lewis and everyone's pointing me to it. What? You would just have a fucking brain hemorrhage and die if you were really method. Shut the fuck up. Just do your accent and do the work. I hate people like that. But the dude can load a fucking flintlock like a motherfucker though because of Last Ridiculous. Yeah, total
That's
credit.
right.
He practiced, right? But that's it. Like, I really do think like that's where we're headed. And the question is, did we already get there? And is that what this is about? But either way, the morals of this life to care for other people become more moral, become more, honest and freer and accepting and less judgmental and all this stuff that the great religions tell us seems like instructions from people that if you follow them, then we'll let you out of this thing. But you can't cheat your way out of it. You can't try to escape. Right. It never works that way. You got to go right back. So I find beauty in that. And my dad, and this is why this is in the front, and I'll let you go because we've done 2.5 hours and we will do another 2.5. My dad was saying wake up to himself as he was trying to he was getting drowsy, but he was like, wake up, Sparks. Come on, Sparks. He kept saying it. Damn it. And he was like, I'm yelling at myself because he didn't want us to think he was mad at us. At him, or he was mad at us. And there were a couple of times when he was like, wake up, Sparks, wake up, Sparks. I was like, if this was a simulation and it was just getting really painful at the end, and you're actually not talking to us, you're talking to the people standing outside your capsule in this thing, and this hurts, wake up, wake me up, I'm done, this is it. I'm good. I did what I had to do. I've learned what I need to learn. I've been through all this stuff. I'm at the tail end of this. Wake me up.
Yeah.
That he's not talking to me. He's not even talking to himself. He's talking to the people who will open the chamber and go, how was that? Yeah. Well, the last few days sucked, but man, with my friends coming by to tell me how much they love me and, that was the big one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if it's not a thing, I want to believe that it is.
Yeah.
Just especially in that kind of context, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Was gone through the same thing, the same exact. It's uncanny, the similar experience, and dealing with that sort of thing.
And I would say that there's something airy fairy about the idea that you would be with your family after in the other side in a religious sense. But that makes total fucking sense if it's a sim.
Yeah.
That you come back as, as different roles, playing different roles in each other's lives, experiencing all these things, but ultimately you are who you are on the outside of this, and you've been through all of it,
Yep.
father and son and father, because everybody's the same age when you come out. You know, everybody looks the same basically. So these experiences of that this short time in this space give us has a glory to it that is necessary for our interactions on the other side. If you never get sick and you can, effectively, leave the planet and do all these other things, that's where the glory of them, and we've recognized that. The idea is that we know that. We know that there's a value in challenge that has a depth that maintains us as a soul, that maintains our humanity. And without it, we might lose something. And so what you do is you recreate a space where it's totally committed. And people go through that, and therefore you still have that soul growth without having to sacrifice your physical person or die just as you're getting wise. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah.
Another Next Generation required homework viewing for those of you who haven't seen it. Inner Light, the episode called Inner Light from Star Trek The Next Generation, has a very similar, not exactly what we're talking about,
right?
But Captain Picard encounters a probe that allows him to experience 50 years of someone else's life on an extinct planet in just 20 minutes. And he carries that memory forward. It's not like, here's a history book of this extinct planet.
Right.
It's, we're going to make you experience what it was like to live on that planet.
Right.
Through this probe, and it's only going to take 20 minutes, but in your mind, it seems like you were there for 50 years of your life and fell in love and got married and had kids and tried to solve the problems of that world and all of it. It's just one of the most fascinating.
Last Temptation of Christ. That's what that was.
Yeah.
The Last Temptation of Christ is he on the cross, he gets to experience in a moment of mercy, because he has these physical feelings that because he became a human, he has this moment where he can live as a man in the hours that he's on the cross or whatever is the idea. And that he, realizes he would have chosen to die human as opposed to be God on the other side because of the beauty of life. And that's even with the suffering, even with the pain. And that's the lesson that is heretical to a bunch of, like highly religious or orthodox types, but sings the song of humanity. Yeah. So you're a good dude, Bob Cesca.
Well, let's talk dads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk dads over some coffee one of these days soon.
I insist. I'm gonna come your way. You're in DC, correct? Still? Yeah, around that area?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna make my way. I'm gonna make my way that way fairly soon because I love snow. And so I will be there for some of it. So I'll let you know, and we'll keep that.
Right.
And everybody in the chat, thanks for hanging out with us today, as well. I know I didn't get to really address much of the what you guys were saying, but I'm glad we got to have this conversation with a bunch of people, taking it in and absorbing it. My only assignment for the chat room is just sit with it. Sit with what we were talking about today and see how it matures as an idea, because we don't do that a lot in this day and age. I had a conversation with my son about his grandpa passing, and we talked about a few of these things, and I didn't want to hear like, hey, tell me how you feel about this, tell me what you're going through, because I feel like we become performative in our communications in those moments. I just said sit with it, just let this sit with you, and then if you ever feel the need to talk about some part of it, that's up to you. Now to 10 weeks, 10 years. That's the important part of it. Because I want to know what you really experience in this, not what you would respond back with a mix of stuff you've heard before and stuff you think you're supposed to say and stuff you hope is true. So, yeah. Anyways, you're awesome, Bob Cesca. Thank you for being here.
So are you,
it means
man.
a lot.
Thank
it means
you.
a lot. And I'm going to go weep now. So you're awesome. And yeah, I'm not kidding. So you're awesome. And I will talk to you very soon. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon. All right.
All the best to you and your family, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. And I'll let you guys go, chat room. All right. I have to play music on my own. There you go. I'm flipping my own switch. There you go. Hold on. I'll do this. hit that like, share the show. We might need to release this Sim Theory segment as a show. Love you guys. Thank you.